What's going on, everybody? I go by the name of Marv, and you are now tuned in to another episode of Gem Talk, where we have conversations that inspire greatness. And today, I got someone very special with me. This is somebody who I've got an opportunity to see teach in person a few different times. I've had some really great conversations with him, short but good conversations. And we've just connected over the years. And I'm excited to be able to have a nice long talk where we can really go into depth on some things. So without further ado, this is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Matty Conrad. What's going on, bro?
Hey, Mar. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate this. I'm actually really excited to get a chance to have a chat with you, too, because we have been ships in the night at a lot of shows.
Yeah.
We've seen each other at a lot of things. You and I DM each other occasionally on Instagram, but I've been watching a lot of these. I love what you're doing here, man. I love it. I've been actually a huge Marv supporter for a long time, and I really appreciate that you are also always rocking the support your local barber hat. That was one of my little projects that I did during COVID, and yeah, man, I see that on you all the time. I appreciate it so much. You're a good man.
Yeah, you're the man, bro. I remember the first time I feel like the first time I can remember coming across you and what you do. It may have been the LV Barber Expo. You know,
Yeah.
you've been to so many of them now, right? So they all start to blend together. You've been to more than me, but I've been to a lot, so they all start to blend together. But I think the first time I seen you was on the stage at the LV Barber Expo, and you crushed it. And I'm like, who is this dude?
Thank you. I mean, yeah, I remember. I think that was the one where I told everybody that Instagram had become just a circle jerk for barbers. And I heard crickets in the back, and I was like, "Oh, wrong crowd for this one. Wrong crowd."
Circle jerk. What did you mean by that when you said that? Where did that come from?
It was interesting because I think that, like, I'm one of those people that I've been doing this for now like 30 years. You know what I mean? I've seen the entire transition from just being a solid local service-based business to then that kind of spike of internet popularity that barbers saw. And I think it both helped and hurt barbering in a lot of ways. And I think there's good ways to use it, bad ways to use it. I think there's good benefits, bad outcomes that it can create. And I think that it's been a very interesting thing that nobody wanted to have a lot of conversation around. You know what I mean? And I know that there has been now after that point, because LV Barber Expo that I did, that was, Jesus, like 8 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe longer than that. I mean, we've been doing expos now in barbering for over a decade, you know, and before that it was big hair shows that included barbering too. And a lot has changed, you know, but it's interesting to have a conversation with a large group of barbers about what they think about the benefits or the drawbacks of the internet age in barbering.
Yeah, for sure. That had to be that probably was like 2018. Probably 2019, because it definitely was pre-COVID. I think it might have been either the first or second one they did out there.
Yeah,
the LV one.
Yeah,
so I was still on the come up too. At that point, I hadn't spoke on any of the major stages. At that point, I was doing some small classes and things like that. But I tell you what, man, seeing you up there and seeing how you worked the crowd and seeing how authentic you were, it definitely inspired me to want to take it to that level. You know, I'm like, I don't know who this dude is. This first time I'm seeing him, but he's up there and he's crushing it. So that's when I started following you. And then, of course, I seen this and I'm like, you know, I need to get my hands on one of those. But then you know how that goes. It takes forever and I just don't end up ordering it. And then you reached out and sent them to me. So I appreciate these, bro. I wear it everywhere. You see it.
I got multiple colors if you want them. I'll be happy to send you more. I think the thing when it comes to the stage part for me, the reason why things went off so well for me and kind of exploded the way they did is just because I was not afraid to just be myself.
Yeah.
I used to work for big brands before everything kind of popped off. You know, it wasn't like big clipper brands and barber brands back then. There wasn't teams for Wall. There wasn't teams for, when I started out, there was no barber teams. Right. There was hairdressing teams and like everybody was really into the hairdressing thing. All of the big companies had technical teams. They were all doing like Sassoon based cutting education. And that's really where I started. I started out doing that and working with a lot of technical work as a hairstylist, which the funny thing is when I switched to barbering, the reason why I switched to barbering had a lot to do with my grandfather, and it had a lot to do with just where I was in my life and what I wanted for myself and what I was inspired by. And I just hard switched after my grandpa passed away. I made this barber shop that was inspired mostly by him, and a little bit by this other shop that I'll talk about. But that was like 2009, 2010 ish. Um, Before that, it was like doing a bunch of technical hairdressing and traveling around the world and teaching for hairstylists. The problem with it was is that I didn't get to be myself. I didn't get to do the things that I wanted. I had to do the stuff that was being taught to me. You know, I had to like recreate these like jellyfish looking haircuts, you know what I mean, that were like very popular at the time. There was these 3 or 4 people in the world that were doing this really creative stuff and then teaching other people how to do it. And it was like this, it wasn't creative, it was recreative.
Yeah.
It was like you're not really doing your own creative thing. Just the same way now people are kind of trying to copy each other's haircuts. It's always been like that. But that was before the barber thing really took off. Like when we first started, there was a shop in New York City called FSC. All right, Freeman Sporting Club. I knew all the guys that worked there, not personally. I was obsessed with this barbershop. It was one of the first ones I'd seen that had an old kind of feel to it, had an old classic feel. And at that point, I mean, there was no Scorum. Donnie Holly wasn't really doing his thing, at least in a way that anybody else paying attention outside of Long Beach. You know, Tim and all those guys. There was a guy in Australia. There's really like 5 shops around the world, and FSC was this one. Maybe I'm thinking 2005, I think, when I first started paying attention to those guys. And it was before Instagram. It was like when like Facebook was still a thing. And I remember seeing on YouTube back then too, like this video from this shop, and I thought it was so cool, and I was really inspired by it. And it always kind of stuck in the back of my head, and it was this thing that grew and grew and grew. Became fascinated with the history of barbering. I became fascinated with that idea of the role that barbershops play in society, the importance that they have in the lives of men and mental health. Like so many aspects of it was really appealing to me. And so I got really wholesale obsessed with it until ultimately I was like, this is what I want to do. Like I can't deny that this is what I want to do, but I wanted to do it on my own terms. So I got to, instead of having to be corporate on stage and toe the line for all these other people and you know, hit the brand talking points and all the things that they do when you work for a company. By the way, if any of you are trying to work for a company, you get 10% of it gets to be your personality, about 90% of it gets to be brand talking points and things that they want you to cover and stuff that they want you to do to make the brand look good. I didn't have any of that. I just got to get up and say what I wanted. And
beautiful.
I couldn't get fired because I was working for myself. I created my own brand. I created my own thing. I had learned enough about how to do it from working with other companies for a long time. But by the time I had my own thing, like gloves were off and I could say what I wanted.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, man, being able to just be your authentic self with no muzzle on, right? Like that's why over the years for me too, I've worked with brands in partnership ways, but not in ways to where it was like, I can't have a muzzle on, you know,
Yeah.
even it's just, I don't know, man. Even when I worked with Squire for a couple years, and the thing I appreciated about working with them is they let me do my thing. They just were like, do your thing. You know, just obviously we got to figure out a way to plug our thing into what your thing is. So that way it makes sense. Right. But, you know, I'll give them all the credit in the world because when I decided I was going to work with them, that was one of my big like conditions is like, I got to be able to do my thing. Like I get there's certain things you just can't do, right? Working with a company, but I got to do my thing. And they gave me that leash. They gave me a long leash, I should say.
It's the benefit that they're looking for, though. You know, like it's a very nearsighted brand that wants to try and find somebody that has their own popularity. And then they want to try and change you into what they want instead of just attaching their wagon to you, so to speak. Smart people do that. Smart brands do that. They find people that have got their own thing and they attach themselves to that person rather than vice versa. The problem is that so many people these days, their goal is not to become a good, competent barber. Their goal is to become famous. And if they want to be famous, which has never been a thing in history, by the way, like barbers being famous has almost never been a thing until
it's wild to see it developing, man.
It's almost insane.
Yeah.
Because it is, you know, it's the weirdest part of the age we're in. But the goal is to become famous, not good. And so when a person wants to go work for a brand hoping to become famous, what they're hoping is that that brand is going to develop them and promote them into that notoriety. But it doesn't actually work that way.
No.
Brands aren't really interested in making you famous, because the more well-known they make you, the more they have to pay you. It's against what they really ultimately want, right? They don't want to have to pay you more, so they only want to promote you so much, or maybe not at all.
Yeah.
They're happy to work with people that are self-promoting, that have already built their own notoriety, and they love approaching those people, and they pay them very well to work with them a lot of the time, maybe, depending on the size of the company. So most people, I think, are hoping that the brand is going to make them famous, but it's the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell, up and coming barbers, when we get into these type of conversations and they're talking about doing like a lot of the cool stuff and work with the brands and all that, I'm like, bro, there's going to be a certain point where you hit a cap though. Like you're going to hit a cap and it's going to be a wrap for you, because like you're saying, you're going to start to build up, you're going to start to learn more, you're going to start to navigate through this world, and you're going to start to see like, hey, maybe I shouldn't just do all of this stuff for free. Maybe I shouldn't just do all of this for free like I've been doing it, making 12 videos a month, posting on my page, and, standing on a stage selling, XYZ product. Maybe I shouldn't do all this for free. And then that's when you want to, get more, because you've built more value and you feel like you've earned it. But a lot of times, like you said, brands just they're not interested in that. They're going to say, okay, well, appreciate you, thank you, and then it's like it's on to the next up and comer who's hungry for that opportunity.
Yeah, but exactly, because there's a lot of people out there that want that, right? And so there's a constant line of people coming behind you. But the solution to that, I guess, is, well, there's a few, right? I mean, one of the solutions people look to is to build their own brand. And they think, okay, cool, I'm just going to build my own brand because, I've been selling shampoo for these other people, or I've been selling products for these other people. I got a shop, I got a name, I got a logo. I want to make my own, right? That is the trap that we fall into.
Yeah.
Is that I got a logo, ergo I got a brand, right? And all I need to do is put my logo on this product. Boom, I have a brand. You know what I mean? And it's just so easy for the ego to tell you that that's the case. You know what I mean? You have your Barber's brand, right? I've seen your Barber's logo thing. What do you have something else like that you call your brand? Do you have other things that you branded, other stuff you built, other things that you work on?
I mainly just focus on, I could be all over the place. That's my gift and curse is that ADD thing. But, as far as like when you're talking about putting like a logo on things, the only things I've actually put like my logo on are just merch and pins and like the bopper cards and stuff like that. I haven't gotten into much more than that.
Okay, cool. So you got merch. That's where I started.
Yeah.
I mean, my brand started, aside from the fact that I was working for other brands at the time at a very high level, I was working like globally for one of the biggest cosmetics brands in the world. I had my own brand that I had started in the barbershop, right? I even when I first started my barbershop in 2010, I called it Victory Barber and Brand. Like I knew from the very beginning that I was going to build a brand. It wasn't just that it was a brand, but I was like, well, this is what I'm going to call it, Victory Barber and Brand. And so when we first started, it was just merch. I just had merch with the word victory on it with our logo, you know what I mean? And then before you knew it, like people were buying our t-shirts that just said victory on it, and hats and stuff, which is hilarious that a barbershop started selling hats, you know what I mean? And we just thought I was funny.
The irony, right?
Well, yeah, but now everybody sells hats. And tons of barber merch is hats, you know what I mean? Which is funny and great. But there was all these other things. We started making shaving stuff. We like all these things that were just made sense with guys. But the thing is that I wasn't actually creating any of those things. I was buying blank t-shirts and putting a logo on it. I was buying shaving stuff out of a shipper in China before Alibaba was a thing. And I, put our logo on it, but I wasn't making them. I wasn't developing these things. It was just my logo. And the funny thing is they sold great in my shop, right? Like my shop sold all of this stuff and it was really great. And like doing merch in your shop is great. But having a brand isn't just about what you sell in your own shop. Having a brand requires other people to want to purchase it out of your shop or sell it on your behalf. Okay. And so when it really comes down to white label, when it comes down to logo and all that stuff, here's how you make money as a brand. And take this as somebody that has built one from the grassroots ground up. The way you make money as a brand is once you get to a certain size where you have enough retailers selling on your behalf, because no amount of sales that you make in your own shop is going to help you recoup the costs that you are actually going to lose by marketing, promoting, packaging, developing, and all of those things. You cannot personally sell enough to recoup those costs in a way that makes it meaningful for you to make more money than if you were just selling somebody else's products. Somebody else's products come with guarantees. It comes with often education. It comes with marketing. It comes with a whole, like a fairly large amount of equity that you build in it, because most shops, you'll buy it for a certain price. You'll probably buy it for 50% of what you retail it for. That's the majority of discount that products will give you to sell on their behalf. You buy it for 50%. That means you keep half, and they absorb all of the other costs of that from their half. If you are building a white label, you are going to basically pay maybe 35%. So you're for 15% margin, you are going to give up all of the support of those things, and you're going to put your label on it. You're going to put your sticker on it, but you are going to eat any failure costs. You are not going to have necessarily a long enough shelf life. You are going to have exactly the same products as somebody else, and you are not able to sell them through a third party because you don't have a large enough margin. If you are paying 35%, well, somebody else is wanting to buy them from you for 50% of those things. You have 15% to try and deal with packaging, shipping, building out all of the other support structures that actually are required for a brand. And let me tell you, like, white label is not a way to build a brand. It's only a way to build a shop's like back end. If you want to sell them to anyone else, you can't make profit on white label. You just can't. You have to develop your own, because otherwise everyone can do exactly the same thing that you're doing with the exact same product. And as much as it feels cool to see your logo on stuff, unless you've actually developed something new, then you're not really adding anything. The brand isn't really worth anything. It's not really telling you anything. It's just kind of white noise. To be a brand these days, you have to do something that stands up, right? Like, I mean, you yourself as your own brand, you're, barbers, like, everybody, as soon as I say that, everybody instantly knows who that is.
Kind of weird how it happened that way, but yeah, it is. Like, I kind of like attach my face to the word barber somehow by accident. It's kind of crazy when I think about it.
But even when you like don't have your face anymore, and it just, you see the word and you see it with too many R's and an S, and instantly everybody's like, Marv, right? Like you've created something that is like iconic for you, that is recognizable. That is good branding, because it stands out and is unique, and no one else did it, and it was just interesting. You know what I mean? Regardless of what comes after, barbers, like everybody right away. You know what I mean? When I first started trying to do this thing, a lot of it was built on my own style of photography that I really liked. And it just had this black and white and this type of texture that it had. And everybody knew my work before I started doing it. And the reason why I bring up photography, and the reason why I bring up this whole thing when it comes to building a brand, is that building a brand isn't about having a logo and about attaching stickers to existing products. Building a brand is about building a lens through which you see the world. Everything has to fit together. Everything has to make sense. If I went and had like a bunch of workout equipment and I put the word victory on it in my label, it would not make sense, right? It wouldn't make sense to have that just because it's, attached to the brand or the logo or whatever. It's like all of the things have to make sense. The color, the feel, the scent, the texture, the things that you put your name on, all those things have to make sense cohesively for them to be like a brand, for people to get it, for people to understand what it is that you're trying to do. And what you're really trying to do, creating a brand, is you're trying to put your opinion out in the world. Like, as a barber, as a host on the internet, as as a creative director, as a person who is trying to make products, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to put your opinion of what needs to exist into the world. Okay, whether it's your shop, your haircuts, your podcast, your whatever, it's you sharing your opinion, and it's what makes you innately valuable and unique, because your opinion is super unique to who you are. It's influenced by completely different things than everyone else's. And your opinion of what needs to exist, your opinion of what haircuts look good, your opinion of what a shop should feel like is exactly the reason why your customers come to you. And it's not trying to be somebody else's. It's not trying to copy something else or copy anyone else's. It's purely based on what you think is cool, what you think people need, what you think is going to help you create what you want to create, what you think things should feel like or be like, or what you think needs to exist in the world and doesn't. Like, that's always going to be the best place to come from when you're trying to build a brand or a shop or a career. Even if you're just a single chair dude working behind a chair, the haircuts you create, people come to you for your opinion. And that's really the area that if you want to start building a brand, you want to start building a business, you want to start building anything, you have to be really certain of what that is. Because the one thing that I can absolutely guarantee for you in every aspect of this business is that there is no one recipe for success. There is a recipe for failure, and it's trying to make everyone happy or trying to please everybody. There's lots of different ways you can be successful, but you will always fail by trying to make everyone happy. So trying to have an opinion on things, trying to have a place that you're coming from or something that you like, that it doesn't matter if no one else likes it. It doesn't matter if no one gets it. If you get it, there will be other people that do. You know what I mean?
Barbers. I don't know if you guys are I hope you guys are just soaking this all up. I personally feel like this is some what they like to call a higher level talk. And what I mean when I say that is some of this stuff may sound even a little bit confusing to some of you guys who are tuned in, because you might be confused, not even really knowing what white label means or what margins mean, and costs over here, costs over there mean. But if that is, the case for some of you tuning in, this is definitely going to be one of these episodes that you're going to want to rewatch. You're going to want to search up some of these terms. You're going to want to really try your best to understand the verbiage in the language that Matty's using, because he's dropping some serious gems right now. He's dropping some serious gems when it comes to branding and just building a business, building your own company, making your, putting your stamp in the world. And I can only hope you guys can just share this conversation with as many people as possible. And here's why I say that. I say that because so many people and us as a people would benefit so much more, in my opinion, if we all had the understanding that Matty is sharing right now. Because, and I say that because, for example, when I go to barbering events, I've been to so many over the years, and Matty can attest to this. When we go to these events, what do we see? We see the same exact clipper, 4 straight stations, just with a different logo on it, or the same exact razor, the same shaver, the same everything, just a different logo on it. And most of what Matty is discussing is missing, right? Whereas if we as a culture, barbering culture, could start to understand, okay, this brand building thing requires a lot more than just coming up with a cool logo or a cool name. It requires a lot more than that. And then we as a culture understood what those things are. Then that's how we start innovating. We start taking our products to the next level. We start doing some really cool things, and we start to grow beyond just being the industry where we just are buying the same clipper from a different person with a different logo. You know what I'm saying? So I'm loving it, man. You're dropping a lot of gems.
Before we started, we were talking about Bossio. We were talking about Chris Bossio, right? I mean, there's a guy who I have just the utmost of respect for, because this is a man that has pushed elements of our industry that did not exist. He saw a thing that needed to happen, and he sacrificed and worked his ass off to make it happen. That is a man that I deeply respect. You know what I mean? Because I don't see his stuff everywhere else. Yeah. I see the things that he makes, and they're unique, and I'm like, good for you, man. Like, even if I don't love every part of it, even though I don't love every single thing, I'm like,
it's the process of it.
It's not my stuff, but I appreciate that he's working to make it happen. I think that there is, we saw this thing happen in barbering over the last 15 years, where there was like this massive sweeping boom. There's like a boom. There's a trend of barbering, right? Everything became like this, like somebody showed me this thing today, and I got to show you this because like, I just feel so triggered by it. it was like that thing that's going on where everybody is making like they're making like action figures out of themselves, right?
I seen a video of it. I seen a barber do it. I forget specifically who it was. It was a female barber. She shared it, but I'm not really up on what that is. So maybe you can even
I guess there's some
elaborate on it.
I'm not sure if I know either. I'm going to show you really quick because I think there is some sort of like internet like barber
like trend type of thing
where everybody is like, hey, I can make myself into an action figure. But I saw this today. Somebody made the barber action figure, and if that's not the most like triggering fucking thing. There's like
Barber, your crown, our craft. Okay,
so
explain when you first seen that. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, somebody sent that to me, and first of all, that my apron, my face, I almost always wear a black t-shirt, black pants when I'm working. This essentially looks shockingly like me. It's not me. I'm sure it's somebody else who made it for themselves.
If it had the cowboy hat,
fair. But those are the wall clippers that I use. Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, this is what a caricature of a barber started to look like, right? Everybody started to kind of do the same thing. And then I remember those guys that were making fun of like, here's the different types of barbers, the old school barber, the guy that's the hip hop barber, the whatever, like there was just all of these different caricatures of barbers inside of it because this boom had happened and so many people were getting into barbering. And it's interesting because a lot of the people that initially got in at the beginning of the trend have now gone out, right? Yeah. Like I saw a lot of people that came up as educators. I saw a lot of people that came up as shops and things. A number of shops flared open, and then everything is now kind of calmed back down a little bit. On the other side of that was interesting because when everyone getting into this thing for the trend, like all we wanted to do was survive the trend. We wanted to be on the other side of the trend. We didn't want to see it die out, right? After everything had stopped being internet popular. And that's been kind of an interesting ride. You know what I mean? Watching the way the industry has changed as a result of that, watching the ebbs and flows of the tides has been a really interesting thing. What have you noticed that are some big differences in the last, say, like 5 years?
I see a lot more younger people being attracted to this. Mm-hmm. And it's cool. And I think it's dope that, when somebody is in middle school or, high school, they're thinking about entering our field. Mm-hmm. I love that. But the part that, obviously concerns me is the reason why they want to enter the field.
The expectations, I think.
The expectations, right? And what they actually think this is. And it's like, man, it's not that. So that's why I try to do, some of what I do to teach them, or at least provide some insight, give some perspective, share thoughts, do things like this. Mm-hmm. So that way, when these younger barbers are coming across my content, hopefully the ones who are really like serious about being successful in this will consume this content and then take it and run with it.
I was in New York just this past weekend. I was sitting on a panel for a conversation that happened with a whole bunch of barbershop owners from around New York and New Jersey, right? I was talking to guys from 12 Pel, and they've done an incredible job of growing their brand. I don't know if you know those guys.
Yeah, I feel like they're pretty much at least from my perspective, they are like the creator of the consultation style type of video, at least from my perspective.
Let's talk about that in a second because they cracked that, and that was huge. But one of the things that I think is really interesting, though, is he was saying that the overwhelming percentage of barbers that are in school right now are under the age of 20. So it's interesting because there's a new young generation of people coming into this industry. And I think that one of the biggest challenges we're going to face is just being able to meet expectations. I remember we were at a show about a year ago. Sophie and Carlos and a bunch of us were getting interviewed. And Sophie always asks people, these little questions with their camera. She's like, hey, how much do you charge? So when she put the video together, I realized there's a whole bunch of people, these what I call hype barbers, and I don't mean to slap anybody with that. I don't mean that's as a slight. I just mean hype barbers are like the barbers that everybody knows. Anyway, they asked them all, like, what do you charge for a haircut? And they all said, okay, well, this person charges $100, or this person charges $85. This was $200. Carlos like $300, and it was all these people talking about these, prices that they charge. And then they're like, "Oh, Matty, what do you charge?" I was like, $55. And man, it was like the record scratch moment on the video when everybody's like, "Brr," and then I got so many people coming for me saying I was setting a bad example. All right.
Crazy.
Here's the thing that I want people to understand is that nobody asked how it's going. Of all those people that they interviewed, I own 3 shops, my own home, you know what I mean? I travel around the world, and it was like, I did that on the back of $55 haircuts and a whole bunch of other work that I was doing because I didn't front load every piece of my financial security onto a person sitting in my chair every hour or half hour. Also, I only do 30-minute haircuts. So that's about $110 an hour for people that are doing $85 to an hour haircuts. The math didn't math. The other big problem too that was left out of that conversation is afterwards I was talking to Carlos, who I have a ton of respect for, creative, like amazing at what he does. It does so many more things than just cut hair. And he cuts hair for $300. And I looked at him, I said, do you really cut hair for $300? Is that really your price? And he's like, yeah. I said, why? He says, because I don't want to do haircuts. And if you want me to cut your hair, you have to pay me that much to do it. That's a very honest thing to say, but it's also a completely different fucking conversation, isn't it? Because when a guy's coming out of school going, I can earn $300 cutting hair an hour, you know what I mean? Versus I charge that much because I don't want to do haircuts. That has to be a different conversation. That's not inspirational at that point. Like, hey, you can get here. That's like, I don't like doing this to the point where I'm going to not overcharge. That's wrong. I didn't mean to say that, but I'm going to charge this much just to make it worth me doing it. You can't hate haircuts that much when you're in school that you need to charge that much to do them. Like, that's not something to aspire to. That's something that we need to like kind of give a more realistic idea of, hey man, you are going to work hard out of school. It is going to be worth it long term, but out of school, it is going to be hard. You're probably not going to be charging $100 an hour to start. You know what I mean? You might, but rare. You know what I mean? And that's okay if you're not. It's okay if you're not. It's okay to start out giving it. Do you know how many haircuts I still do for free? I've been doing this for 30 years. I do free haircuts every time I think it's either a good opportunity to build a client or to just bless somebody who needs it, you know what I mean? And build a good reputation and build a good relationship, or even just helping somebody out sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I still go do free shit if it's like for some celebrity client that I want to work with, you know what I mean? Yeah, no problem. I got this. Like there's a lot of opportunities where you might have to do stuff for free. And I still do it at 30 years into this thing with the reputation that I've built. I still do it. And it's just part of the deal. Like most people don't recognize opportunity and maybe a place of value on opportunity, because I've run into a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, this is a great opportunity. How much are you going to pay me? And I'll be like, know your worth, but more importantly, understand your value. When you're new, you need to understand your value, not know your worth. Knowing your worth is about what you're worth as a person. It's your own innate sense of worth and value as a human. That is never in question, and it should have nothing to do with your job or anything else that you do. That is who you are as a person, and you are infinitely valuable beyond whatever you do as a job. But you do have to be realistic about your value, because your value is a mathematical calculation based on how much time you have. Because when you have a lot of free time, just like any other commodity, the more you have, the less it's worth. So if you're sitting in a shop and you got nothing but free time, I hate to tell you this, but it's not worth very much.
Yeah.
When you are consistently busy and have very little free time, the value of that time goes up. That is essentially how we navigate pricing. That's how we navigate what things are worth. Not only that, but you have to gauge that against your market. You might charge $150 for a haircut in New York, and that's very normal, but that haircut is not going to fly in Appleton, Wisconsin, right? Where you live is going to be a big factor based on what the value of your haircut is. How many other people are available for quite a bit less that can do comparable quality to you? That's another one. How much free time you actually have to devote to cutting hair. That's another one. How we decide our time value is largely based on how much of it we have to give. And if we have very little, or in Carlos's case, doesn't want to cut hair with his time, well, then the value of that time goes up for people that actually want to get in, right? And so a lot of the time when we're trying to base my pricing, like the reason mine is so low is because I work in a shop with other barbers in an area of town where that is essentially the going rate. And there's other competitive shops around, and the less competitive shops there are, the more we can raise. The type of quality of work that we do, does factor into it. But I feel like a lot of new barbers, when they're starting out, hang their value entirely on the quality of the haircut.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I think that's one of the drawbacks of Instagram, of something that we've done. The quality of haircutting right now has never been higher. It's never been higher. But the competitiveness of educators in the industry, the presence of so many educators in the industry, the ability to filter in Photoshop, the competitive nature that we've created inside of Instagram is the circle jerk that I was talking about. We spent the first 10 years of Instagram being barbers for barbers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we still are. We're still doing it.
But here's what I love what 12 Pel did, and what has been really successful for some of the newer guys in my shop as they're coming up, is they cracked the code of, I'm going to show you the consultation and then the finished result, because you don't really care about anything else. What we're doing is we were spending so much time being barbers, showing barbers how like me, more barber than you. You know what I mean? Like, look how much better barber I am than you. And that was kind of the underlying message. And then 12 Pel was like, who cares? Let's talk to the clients, because they're the people actually coming and sitting in the chair. So let's make Instagram about attracting clients. And they don't attract clients by showing off your haircut, because the majority of clients don't know how much better a haircut that is. And it's almost like we started doing these weirder and weirder things showing off to each other, but clients were looking at them going like, I don't think I'd wear that. And that was exactly why I kind of got out of hairdressing and this got into barbering, is because hairdressing had become weird. Like all of this stuff that was happening there, all the things that were getting awards in the industry, all the stuff that was getting like high fives, and people were talking about like all this beautiful artistic work. And it is. I just don't know what it had to do with hairdressing.
Yeah, like everyday life.
Yeah,
like the everyday person.
Yeah, and I feel like barbering is kind of just following that suit. Like 100%. I don't know, like no slack on any of the guys that are competing right now. I stopped competing altogether. I had won a lot of those awards previous. I'd won a NAHAD. I had a bunch of awards that I've been given for my work, and I just decided that I wasn't going to benefit from any of those awards anymore. There was nothing that could the opportunity wasn't going to be created by that. But I'm watching these guys and I'm seeing the same thing happening. I'm seeing just art pieces for the sake of art pieces, and they're cool and they're hard to do, and the artistry is amazing. I just didn't know what it had to do with barbering, and it is really cool. But to win like Barber of the Year based on, like, you should be like visual artist of the year, or you should be like some sort of hair artist thing, but Barber of the Year, to
it's just like we're tying things together that don't necessarily need to be tied together.
For me, barbering has always been a servant of the people. It's always been about taking another person and helping them see in the mirror what they want to see in themselves, what they want to see, the best version of themselves through any means possible, whether it's by just pumping his tires and making them feel good, some sort of expertise that you have to share, your ability to cut hair. Like, there's so many things that go into it, right? Being able to interpret a face shape and help people even learn how to style their hair. My goal is so simple. I boil all of that down to one simple phrase that needs to happen for me at every single service. I just want this guy to walk taller out the door than he walked in.
Mm-hmm. With a little bop in his step when he moving.
Yeah, man. Shoulders back, chin up, feeling good about himself. Like, that's the whole purpose. And so the artistry is for me. The artistry is for the barber. It's for showing off to other barbers. But the guy, like, the haircut is an outward expression of an inner vibe. You're not just a canvas for a human being to show you how good he can cut hair. You really are trying to express something about yourself. And as a barber, in my opinion, the goal is to help that person express themselves. It's not help you express yourself on them, right? And we get that muddy sometimes because we're really trying to express our artistry, perfect our craft, and do all these things. But when it really comes down to the business of barbering, when it comes down to running a shop or being a successful barber, I mean, you need to have a certain level of quality, but above that, you're really just showing off to other barbers. The majority of it is if you can do a 9 out of 10 haircut and do 10 out of 10 service, or let's scrap that.
Yeah.
If you can do a 7 out of 10 haircut and a 10 out of 10 service, you are going to be successful at this.
Yeah.
Because the real secret isn't cut hair better than everyone else. The secret is give a fuck about the person sitting in your chair and make them know it. Like make them feel included, make them feel good, make them feel like they matter, make them feel heard and seen.
I love that you're saying this because Saturday I cut this little kid, right? I cut this little kid, and then I always cut his bigger brother too. But the little kid doesn't like to really sit in the chair. He's like the perfect sitter for the first 3 minutes. And then after that bro was telling me the cape hurt. I'm like, bro, the cape don't hurt. Like I mess with the little kids too. I talk to him.
I love that one. It's like, I can feel it. I can feel it being
I'm
cut.
like, bro, the cape don't hurt. Right. So it got to the point where I did like a 3 on the sides, scissor work the top, did a little taper, and I was trying to taper his back, but I couldn't. You know, the little kids, they're doing. Good. So, you know, I got to the point in my career where I understand there's an allotted time that I'm going to dedicate to this activity, and I'm going to make the most of it, make the best of it, do my best to make this service fun, enjoyable, troll around, joke around, and try to make the taper look the best it can. But in certain instances, the taper is just not going to be up to par to what I would think as a barber, or definitely not what Instagram barbers would think, right? No. So I'm explaining I have a barber that's working with me now. He's my best friend in life. We grew up together. I'm 38 years old. He's 37. Oh, no, he just turned 38. I'm turning 39, right? But he's just now becoming a barber. So he's in barber school and all of that. So I'm just explaining to him in that moment about, you know, the importance of the customer service, doing the best you can. Also making sure you're not taking all day on certain things, because at a certain point, there's only the best you can do. I'm giving him this whole spiel like you would, right? And it was funny because then later in the day, the mom sent me a picture of the pictures that she took him to go get the kid. And he's taking a picture with the Easter bunny. And she just is like, thanks again. He looks so handsome. He has a little suit on. So, you know, I love the picture. And I said, you're very welcome. So she loved the haircut, right? So then I took a screenshot of that whole text thread and I sent it to him. I'm like, see, this is what matters. Yeah. This is what matters, right? Yeah. Even if I'm the barber and I'm not happy with the taper, she is so happy. She's so hyped, right? If I posted that taper online, Marv getting ripped apart by the other barbers. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. All that matters is that she loved it. She loved it. So, you know, I'm glad you're sharing a lot of that, because everything you're saying is so beneficial to an up-and-comer. But
everyone wants to judge and nobody wants to ask how it's going, right? I mean, that's the thing. Everyone wanted to judge my haircut price. No one asks how it's going. I think the thing is that like everybody has this idea in their head, you know, like that it's the best haircut or the best brand or the best product or the best shop that wins. And I hate to tell you this, it's just not true, man. On 30 years, it's not true. The best haircutter in the world, you probably doesn't even know it. You know what I mean? He's definitely not somebody who's blown himself up on Instagram. That's the best haircutter in the world. The best haircut that's ever been done never got pictures taken of it. You know what I mean? The things that qualify something as the best haircut in the world are kind of tricky, because it's not about, is it technically perfect? It's never about, is it technically perfect?
It's so subjective.
How that person feel. It's a subjective thing. Yeah. Like I've seen people cut hair with the kitchen scissors and it looks all fucked up and weird, but it suits that person and they think it's awesome. Yeah. Okay. It's not a technically perfect haircut, but is it good? I mean, our goal should never to be to do technically perfect haircuts. That can't be our only goal.
I got a kid I've been cutting, bro. Let me share this real quick. I've been cutting him since he's been young, right? Yeah. And he ended up winning best hair for his senior year in school. Best hair, because he's got the type of hair where he's got a dark hair texture and very white scalp. So when you fade it right, it really pops. The fade is real nice, right? And the way I cut him is he gets like this mid fade that drops kind of in the back. He wears like a faux hawk kind of thing on the top. And then like up in this area in the back, it gets cut real low, right? Like you're going in there with the clippers cutting it real low, right? So there's been a time or two over the course of my career where I've posted it And of course, you have barbers saying, you butchered the crown. You should have never cut in that area. Like, you got to leave it longer there. You know, all of the barber critique.
Sure.
And a lot of it is right on a technical front, right? But at the end of the day, I've even tried some of that, just trying to take feedback from barbers. And what ended up happening is, can you cut that shorter? Mark, can you cut it shorter? Like, that's too long, right? So I say all that because, like you're saying, like the haircut stuff is so subjective. And at the end of the day, it's all about the person leaving the chair. Are they happy? Are they going to keep coming back? He won best hair, been coming to me for my damn near my whole career, 10, 12 years. So clearly it's a haircut he likes, whether it's technically perfect or not.
And the thing is too, remember, like, we get up Instagram's asshole sometimes, you know, we're just watching these other technically perfect haircuts. And the funny thing is that we think they're still on trend, and they might even not have been if Instagram wasn't a thing. I mean, as soon as I picked my head up out of Instagram and started looking around at places I used to look for inspiration, like fashion magazines or celebrities or, you know, singers and music and whatever, you know, any of these different places, designers, when I started looking at different stuff, you're like, try and find me a blurry fucking fade in Hollywood, in one fucking Hollywood movie. Find me one. You know what I mean? All of this stuff that got inspired by like these old school haircuts and stuff from Peaky Blinders and all that stuff, man, they didn't even have electric clippers then. You couldn't even do that shit. You were doing it with hand clippers. They weren't blended. They were like super hard lines and stuff. You know what I mean? All of the Mad Men stuff. People are like, oh, we're doing all these Mad Men haircuts. No, Mad Men haircuts were blocked. They weren't tapered even, barely. You know what I mean? They were done with scissors primarily. A lot of these things are these like new ideas that we've made look old, and then all of a sudden we've now turned them into the new ideas again. And then you see different types of modalities of people using, well, I use scissors, and then I use scissor over comb, and then I do clipper over comb, and then I do guards, all to the same sections. And I'm like, why are you wasting all of your time doing that? Like, there was just so many things that we started just taking as kind of gospel, I guess, from barbers just being critical. But look in Hollywood, man, like I work with celebrities, I work with, you know, sports, you know, people and athletes and stuff. And the problem is none of them want to have that look. None of them want to have that perfect, flawed, like everything for Hollywood stuff is lived in and it's kind of built out. And even the really haircut stuff that we're seeing right now, the old money haircuts with all the little tails and the things that are flicking out and stuff, like, I think they look really cool. It's just that every time I do one of those things to like an actor friend of mine or something like that, they're like, yeah, that's cool. Can you just like take that, can you taper that down a little, like get rid of that, like the flare on that? I'm like, yeah, okay. And so it's like, I will get inspired by some of these younger guys doing some of this cool stuff and I'll do it. And then my clients will be like, yeah, it's not really, that's cool, but it's not really what I'm looking for. And I guess the thing is that it comes down to this: when all of you guys that are starting out in barbering, all of you guys that are new or just trying to find your clientele or really struggling to wonder if like this is what you want to do, trust me when I say do the haircuts that you love to do and the clientele will find you. You know what I mean? Trying to copy other people's haircuts is not necessarily going to be a recipe for you being busy. I think do the haircuts that you love, do the haircuts that you want to do, and learn how to do them quickly. Learn how to do them efficiently. Not just quickly, not like don't speed through a haircut, but learn to be efficient with your work. You know what I mean? This is something I love that Marv talks about a lot, is that efficiency matters so much more than anything else when it comes to your bottom line and how much money you actually make. Okay. Efficiency is so much more important than what you charge for a haircut. In fact, like if you can do a haircut efficiently, like I can do a really good haircut in 30 minutes. I can nail almost every haircut in about 30 minutes. Right. And that's because I've been doing this for a really long time, but it's also because I don't waste a second. When I'm working through something and I know that I need to reduce a lot of bulk, I hammer through it with clipper over comb, and then I go in and refine it, right? If I'm doing efficiently, I only have to touch each section once, and then I have to do a little bit of detailing at the end. These are the things that really help me work efficiently through haircuts. I don't stop to talk. I make sure that when I'm talking, my hands are always moving. I sit them down and I do their consultation out of the gate. I try to get to exactly what they want as quickly as possible. And I work through this in a way that doesn't feel hurried conversationally, but is very efficient with my actions and my motions. My tools are set out, so I don't need to, I don't need to mess with them. I know exactly where they are. I can grab them. I can really just sculpt. One of the most interesting haircutters that I've met recently, when we filmed the pilot for a TV show, which maybe we can talk about a little bit, is is this guy named Jason Schneidman. All right. And Jason has a phenomenal backstory. He's an interesting guy. He goes by the Men's Groomer. He lives in Los Angeles and in Venice. And he has this really cool shop, and he goes out on the weekends, cuts hair for homeless people because he was homeless at one point. Okay, he was an addict, and he got clean, and now he works with A-list celebrities in Hollywood. Does a ton of famous people's hair, lots of people that you know. But he's also just a really interesting guy. He does a completely interesting free-form style of haircutting that is mostly sculptural, and he does haircuts that look really cool. And he has this celebrity clientele because of those haircuts. And he does them on everybody. And it's not just the same haircut over and over. It's just each haircut is kind of unique and individual. It's not done with a bunch of guards. It's not this kind of perfect, I'm going to take a ruler to everything. But he has a very innate sense of what looks good on a person. He's cultivated that over a number of years. And the more you cultivate that, the quicker those answers come. The quicker those things start to show up. And you're like, I think this haircut would look good on you. Or I think what you're asking for is XYZ. And then he just flies at it. And he's like 15 minutes, man. And it still looks awesome, right? Like he really does power through a haircut, and he charges a premium because he's not charging these people for his technically perfect abilities. He's not charging these people because he spent an hour and a half. He's charging them for his abilities to create what it is that they want to see on themselves that makes them feel good about themselves. And that's essentially it. When I was first starting this out, I was a photographer alongside of being a hairstylist. And the reason for that was because I didn't have enough money to afford to hire a photographer to take pictures. Cell phones didn't have cameras. Buying your own camera is very expensive. But instead of hiring a photographer to take pictures of my work, I decided to just buy a camera and learn. And to do that, I had to use that camera to earn money. And so other people asked me to shoot things for them, family photos or weddings, even things like that. And what I realized when I was doing that is that people don't actually give a shit about the process of anything. They care entirely just about the outcome. Like to be a wedding photographer, what you need is you need to have probably these days about $3,000 to $5,000 worth of gear minimum. You are going to spend probably 10 to 11 hours on the day of the wedding, shooting all of the wedding, shooting everything that you can. You're going to go back and probably spend another 36 to 48 hours doing editing and back and forth with the client, just going and making sure that they have everything they want, compiling books, whatever else it is. All told, it's quite a lot of money, or it's quite a lot of time. People don't really think about that. They think about, I have to spend $1,200 or $2,000 or $3,000 to get 24 photos, right? That's all they think about. And I just want the photos. They don't care about the process. They don't care how long it took you, how many years you had to learn to be a photographer. They don't care about anything other than the outcome. People will pay you for a haircut that they love if it took 15 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes. They will pay you for a haircut that they love. They will not pay you for a haircut that they hate, regardless of how long that it took you. It doesn't matter how long you've been a barber. It doesn't matter how many other clients think you're awesome. If they hate a haircut, they don't want to pay you for a haircut, regardless of how long it took. So we need to get out of the mindset of I charge entirely based on, this takes me an hour and a half to do. It might take somebody else 30 minutes to do. You know what I mean? And it really depends on that. So we need to think about, like, what are we trying to create for our client? What is their goal? How do we help them express themselves? How do we get them to a haircut that they love that I can charge them for? Oh. Marv, I lost your
I'm
There we go.
back. I'm
There we go.
back.
I was like,
So,
I don't know what's happening there. I can't hear you at all. I was
yeah,
like,
we
maybe.
back. Barbers. I don't know where y'all lost me at, but what I was saying was, I'm so glad that you're sharing so much of this because, part of the reason I've gone so hard over the years to build my platform is to introduce my platform to voices that I feel like are bringing powerful perspectives to people and interesting insights and real helpful practical tips. And unfortunately, we live in a time now where, you could be bringing all of that, but if you don't have a platform, people aren't trying to hear you, right?
Yeah,
Like we're getting a lot of guidance or opinions or perspective from people who may not necessarily even really know what the hell they're talking about,
oh
but
yeah,
because they have a large follower account and they've been able to build on social media, it's seen as like coming from a place of authority. Like
sure,
whether we agree with it or not, or like it or not, if
sure.
you build up a platform, it gives you authority in today's world, bro.
And
Right?
it gives you authority on building a platform. Sure.
Well, no, well. So what it
Your goal
that's
is
I agree with you, right? Like
yeah,
I agree with that, and I think that's the understanding you come to once you think it through. But I
sure.
think a lot of like the younger people or people newer to this whole thing unconsciously don't even realize that. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like just because this person has been able to skillfully build up a platform does not mean that you should listen to every damn thing that they say and
Sure.
just believe every damn thing that they say because they have a higher, follower count. So that's why, to revert back to my main point, that's why I'm so fortunate and grateful that you're saying a lot of this, because you've been able to build up a platform on your own. But
Yeah.
part of the reason I built up mine is to be able to introduce this to the people, because now Marv has a bunch of YouTube subscribers. Marv has a bunch of TikTokers. He has a bunch of Instagrammers. So he's coming with some authority, and now they're hearing this perspective from a
Let's
place that they view it as like, all right, now I can listen to that. If
let's
that
talk
makes
about that for a minute, because like maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to share like what it really looks like to have a following, or to be somewhat Instagram famous, even though that's a terrible fucking way to say it. It's because it's not really the same thing. Like
yeah,
fame itself, like, okay, I did this series with GQ after 25 years in the industry, traveling around the world. Literally, I've been on every continent teaching barbering. I've been in front of thousands and thousands of people at the same time. Um, I've somehow built notoriety. I'll call it notoriety. And then GQ came along and asked me to do a series of videos for them that at last check has almost 30 million views, which is more than most like feature films get, right? And so all of a sudden, my stupid ass became famous. And I say that not because I have fame, but because I get recognized a surprising amount. Like I'll be at the weirdest places and people will just come up to me and be like, "Are you the guy from the videos? Are you the internet beard guy?" I'm like, "I'm the internet beard guy, yes."
yeah,
And very fortunately, it's like, it's a very minimally invasive kind of thing, because you're not really famous. What you are is you either have some sort of notoriety, or you have like an ultra. Is there such thing as a Z-list celebrity?
yeah, right,
Like,
right,
like what's lower than that? Because it
yeah,
is essentially that being well known on Instagram and all those kinds of things, with the exception of the top like 0.0001%, does not make you famous or better or smarter or anything. What it does is it just spikes your dopamine to a point where you just chase it after a while, because you constantly need to get some sort of validation from this thing.
yeah,
And I mean, I've felt victim to that before. You know what I mean? Like it's easy to start believing your own press sometimes when everyone wants to tell you how smart and how great you are. But
yeah,
I do some really stupid shit, believing that I'm doing maybe the right thing, or I convince myself, no, I'm inspiring people, or I'm whatever. I'm like, sometimes I'm just trying to deal with my own shit in my head. Like I had to take 6 months off this year because I hit a really bad patch of life. Like some really heartbreaking and horrible shit happened that I didn't want to have happen. It did. And I needed to spend a whole bunch of time getting my head right, and I needed to get myself off of the gram, and I needed to get myself out of the spotlight and all the things, because sometimes you just can't figure your shit out when everyone else is telling you that you're so great and everything's awesome. You know what
So
I mean?
you feel like you being so wrapped up into that led to some of the other stuff that ended up happening.
Yeah, sometimes it's like you start to think that, like, you know, when everything is this popularity contest, you know what I mean? Everything is this, well, I've got all these followers, I've got all this stuff, everything's going to be great from that point on. It's not. Like, there's not a lot of money that comes with it. So you're just like, I think a lot of people think like, well, if you're well known, you must be rich. No.
I've been, listen, before, don't lose your point, but I do want to say that it's a new little thing I've been messing with people in the shop with, because like some people have said, like, they assume I'm like rich, right? They assume I'm just millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? So now I ask, like, I've been joking for like the last 2 weeks, everybody that comes in, I'm like, do you think I'm rich? Because I'm trying to figure out if, like, you thinking I'm rich will actually make me like super rich. But like, do you think I'm rich? But it's funny because you're right, bro. Like, they assume, you know, like so much money is just going to come with this. And it's like, it could if you move right, but it also doesn't guarantee nothing.
I often think about like one-hit wonders or people that were like child actors or whatever, stuff that like where you got famous but didn't get the money, and now you have to have like a Joe job. You know what I mean? Like,
that's got to be hard.
Sure, but I mean, like, I think that's the perception. Like, oh, you're famous, so you must have money. I'm like, no. I work behind a chair 4 days a week in a shop in Vancouver right now that I'm trying to save, because like it's no matter what, how known you are, no matter how good you are at doing all this kind of stuff, like, your trajectory of your career is going to go up and down. Like, no matter what, you're going to have valleys and peaks. Just because people know you, like, it might give you some different opportunities, but it's certainly not going to generate a whole bunch more money. You know what I mean? Like, not without hard work. And that's essentially like, there's no like end of the road for being well known or achieving fame. There's no point at which you're going to have enough, or it's going to be enough, or it's going to provide enough. And I think that this is the big thing I went on this huge sabbatical this year, and the reason why everybody's like, what have you been doing, what's with the horses thing, is because I had a really tragic thing happen. I started doing therapy as a result, with horses. All right, that somebody had recommended to me. They're like, you should try equine therapy, you might really like it. And I absolutely loved it, and I became obsessed with working with horses because they regulate your nervous system, and there's like a whole lot of positive things that you can do. Plus, I think that, like, I've been wearing a cowboy hat for the last 10 years of my life. And I think there is just a little bit of cowboy in there somewhere that just was dying to come out. You know what I mean? And I think that when we wrap ourselves up in this branding idea and creating brands, creating careers and all this kind of stuff, we can tie ourselves into that stuff so much that we don't allow any other room for anything else in our life. We become so singularly focused on the idea that, no, I am this. The internet has told me I'm this. I have branded myself as this. I've created this thing, and it is successful and it's well known and it's working. But it's not.
It's still a box. It's still a box.
It's a box that you put yourself in. And so for me, this year was a little bit about breaking out of that box to see what was outside of it for myself. And I started working on ranches. I started working with horses. I went on this crazy journey that I actually documented on my Instagram. But the thing is, like, if I didn't take those videos, people would not have believed the shit that happened to me. At one point, I was caretaking a ranch for rescue horses. There's like 60 horses and me in the desert by myself. And it was like this crazy test of what you're made of, and can you actually do all these things, and are you the man that you think you are, and all this kind of stuff. And it was so good for me to go and do all that, because now I'm able to come back with a completely different perspective on what I'm trying to achieve here. And this is what I wanted to say. And the reason why I brought that up is because what it did for me is it framed what is my ultimate goal with this as a career, and are those goals actually achievable? So here's the two goals that are not achievable: money and fame. And the reason they're not achievable is because there's never enough of either. There's no end point. There is no goal at which you actually get there, where you're like, I want to be famous. Cool. You will never feel famous enough. You will never be famous enough, no matter how many people know your name and how many people have tattooed you on themselves. There's no point at which you're going to feel that it doesn't register. Number two is money. It's good to have money. It's a necessary tool and you need to have it, but there is no sum of money that will be enough, because each phase, each part of your career is going to require more and more money. When I first started my barber shop, writing a check for $10,000 felt insane to me.
Yeah, right.
Now that I own a brand, I'm writing checks for $10,000 almost every day for something else. You know what I mean? So the perspective shifts. So there's never a point which you're like, well, I have enough. I've done enough. I've got enough money. So for me, it had to be about other things. Number one, it was like, how does this allow me to provide for what I hope will one day be my family? I'm in the growing stages of that whole thing. I just got a dog, and and my girlfriend and I live in a new house, that we just moved into that I'm renovating.
I didn't realize I was gonna love dogs as much as I do. We were talking beforehand, and about that. I got 2 dogs. He got 1. Man, I wasn't a dog guy until I got these dogs, but I'm definitely a dog guy. So congrats on just getting the dog. I know that's a big deal.
Oh, puppies you forget how much of a nightmare puppies can be.
Yeah.
Like they're so cute, but you also are just like, why do I want to strangle you sometimes?
Yeah.
He's so sweet. He's a great dog, and he's teaching me a lot about patience. But it's like, how do I use this to provide for my family? How does it influence the community that I'm in, like positively or negatively? How does it allow me to help other people provide for their family, like my staff? How do I help them provide for their family? And then what impact am I having on the lives of my clients? That's it. It's like everything else takes care of itself if you can really think about those things. You know what I mean? Like, am I having an impact beyond just doing a good haircut for my clients? Mm-hmm. Am I able to provide for my family? Am I, it's these really achievable goals. It's not how many people can be in an audience that I'm on stage for. You know what I mean? That, what award can I win? How many followers can I get on Instagram? You know what I mean? How many brand deals can I get? Like, none of that stuff really mattered anymore. It was like, how is the stuff that I'm already doing having an impact? The brand that I have right now is done so well. I'm so lucky to have so much support for it, because it really is a grassroots brand. I designed all the packaging, I designed the products, every aspect about it. I did myself. You know what I mean? I didn't hire somebody else out to do it. I'm not smart enough to do that. I guess I did it myself. And to get that much support in barbering for a grassroots brand has been amazing. It still hasn't paid me a lot of money. What it has done, though, is it has created a lot of opportunities for me to travel, for me to meet people, for me to go and help other people earn a living. But also, just when I get notes from people, when I get feedback from people about, like, this is the product I've been looking for my whole life, I don't, nothing else does what this does. That's the stuff that makes me proud. I could never have achieved that if I just white labeled products and had somebody else design my products. Like the Super Dry product, which is my absolute hands down favorite, took 14 tries to get it right with a chemist, that I had to work with back and forth, 14 tries to get it right. The only reason I got it right is because I had an opinion of what it needed to be, instead of just looking at it going, yeah, it's pretty good. I'm like, no, it's not quite it. And so that's go full circle to that. But working with the brand is like, cool. Having an impact on those people and having some sort of influence on how it makes their day go is kind of rewarding enough. You know what I mean? It's the reward in it is like, I made a thing that I'm proud of. I made it myself, and somebody loves it, and surprisingly, a lot of people love it. And that makes you feel pretty good. I have a couple other brands that I'm going to be starting up too that have different goals, and none of them are financial. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Sorry.
Okay, good. Because some people are saying they can't hear me. A question to you though, because like obviously you've been in this for 30 years, right? That's what you said, 30 years.
Sure.
And you've navigated down a lot of these paths, and you've gotten to a point where you have a lot of these understandings now of what you believe are, things that you should chase, like certain things you should chase and other things you should avoid chasing, because experience has taught you you know, that a lot of the stuff you thought was worth chasing wasn't worth chasing, right? Um, but I guess the question I want to ask you is, do you, because like I find myself, I fall into that trap sometimes too, where you start to maybe suggest that people focus on certain things that should matter more than other things, but there was also a time where those things really didn't matter to us, right? Like it's a lot, if you understand what I'm saying, it's a lot easier to be like, you know, thinking about the awards and, you know,
Hindsight is
these
2020.
accomplishments. It's like, you know, maybe it didn't give that everlasting feeling of happiness, or it wasn't what we thought it would be when we achieved these certain things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, they once were, you know, important to us. So, you know, what do you say to somebody, I guess, that maybe chasing some of that stuff, you know, is it like, how do you feel about it?
I think it's tough because, I mean, you're right. It's impossible. It's always easy to look back on it and say, oh yeah, I didn't need that stuff, but I was really excited about it at the time.
And it wouldn't have brought you to this point, right? If you didn't achieve all the a lot of this stuff or go after some of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one to know. You know what I mean? Because like it's impossible to go back and test it.
Sure.
I think that there were certain things that I was hoping would have turned into other stuff and maybe didn't. Maybe that was on me to have that expectation, or some things that really you don't even know why they happened. It's nice to have a resume. It's nice to have a resume that has stuff on it, but some of those things need to be addressed individually, like awards. Okay, let's talk about awards. The majority of awards in our industry were created by magazines back before the internet was, or Instagram was a thing. Most of them were created to be able to populate a magazine with free content that they didn't have to pay somebody for. Because if you submitted photographs into a competition, you gave away the rights to those photographs, in which case they could publish those photographs without having to pay you. And then they would charge you to come to, or charge you to enter the awards. The money that they would collect from that, they would use to create the awards ceremony, and you would go to the awards. And if you were one of the lucky people chosen, you were decidedly the best, but really you were just the best out of everybody that decided to participate. And most
great marketing and great business strategy, right?
Brilliant as a magazine, but then we started believing that that made somebody the best at something, and it's not really the way it is. Most of the awards started out that way. Lots of them are publicity or marketing for the organization that puts them on. Some of them are just genuinely great and great to participate in, but that's where awards in our industry kind of started. You know what I mean? It wasn't really about recognizing the best. It was about creating enough popular content that a magazine didn't have to pay for, or multiple magazines didn't have to pay for. It's once you kind of realize what that is, and realize that in the back end, it's a tiny bit political for most of them. The awards and the barber battles and all the things, you start realizing that they're just for you. They're great, but they don't ever put another person in your chair that wouldn't have been there in the first place. So it really depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to be an artist, great, you can have a lot of fun with that. But all of the artists that I know in this industry struggle financially.
What do you call starving artists, right? That's just like a known thing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, if you're getting into this to make a lot of money, then you'd be surprised that, like, you know, what you need to do to make money in this industry. You know what I mean? And it has a lot to do with efficiency. It has a lot to do with working in a good environment and picking a shop wisely. Maybe let's talk about like a little bit about what's going on with shops right now.
When you say that, what do you mean? Because what are your thoughts on?
So with the boom happening that we were talking about earlier, the big boom where everybody got into it, a whole bunch of shops popped up, right? A whole bunch, and it became really popular to own a barbershop. And it was a business that non-barbers owned. You know what I mean? Lots of corporate entities try to create, you know, chains of barbershops. And then a lot of them have kind of started to fold. Some of them are, you know, surviving quite well, but the you know, everything's starting to condense right now. And a lot of people are getting out of the industry, or they're opting to go into like a studio, like working on your own kind of thing, creating your own little side hustle and all that sort of stuff. And the nature of the barbershop has always been that people come in, they work there for a little while, you create a team, people will eventually, after a certain amount of time, kind of trail off and go to a different place or go to their own thing, start their own shop. That's just the nature of the industry. what we're seeing right now is a really big influx where large cities, places like New York, places like where I am, Vancouver, Los Angeles, like the places where it's kind of expensive to live, with inflation going as high as it is now and a lot of the things happening, it's really starting to affect blue collar jobs, and barber shops are starting to shrink down again. We're starting to lose staffing opportunities. People have a hard time filling their shop with barbers that stick around any longer than maybe a year, because people have become really impatient with, you know, where they expect to get in a certain amount of time. And so now it's like a revolving door of younger barbers that it makes it really, really hard to maintain any kind of quality control, especially when you're doing education, things like that. You feel like you're on a treadmill of constantly educating people to go off to do their own thing. And that's good. I mean, that's the nature of the industry, but the recycle rate is getting faster and faster. People's attention span is less and less. People's lifestyle requirements are more and more. And so it makes it really, really hard to open a shop in a larger city these days and do really well with it anywhere where there might be a little bit of competition. Especially, I mean, where I am in Gastown, Vancouver is a very cool area of Vancouver. It ebbs and it's a little edgy. And I always say we're doing it right on the wrong side of town. But there's been like 4 shops have closed down here in the last 6 months, and they're just sitting empty right now. And they're like shops that have been around for a long time, you know what I mean? And a lot of people kind of moving in and out of barbering, and a lot of guys going back to hair salons again. Like there was a period where a lot of guys left the hair salon and went to barber shops, right? And at that point, barbers were making fun of hairstylists. Like I remember I took a lot of flack because I came originally from hairstyling into barbering, and that wasn't good enough for barbers. Barbers create gave us a lot of flack. You know what I mean? It was, well, you're not a real barber. You're like a men's hairstylist kind of thing. And I was like, well, you know, I shave with a razor. You know what I mean? I straight shave guys. That's what the most barber thing there is. So, you know, I could do all that work. So I didn't realize what the difference was. And barbers were cool for being clipper cowboys, and you know, hairstylists were not. Now the tables have turned on that, right? A lot of barbers started getting into scissor work and a lot of stuff where they were really struggling with the styling and the, you know, more what was traditionally hairdressery kind of activities inside of barbering. And the problem with that is that now that we've kind of switched those gears and everybody's wishing they had more of a hairstylist background, and a lot of the young guys getting into this are learning more about hair color, learning more about kind of hairstyling and more of that approach. Like the youngest guy in my shop right now is like, hey man, I really want to go to Sassoon's. And it's like, this is where things are going now, which means that the ebb and flow of clients going from hairdressers to barbers is about to switch directions. And it's happened historically. And when that happens, that's kind of the thing that happens, is that these hairstyles come in. Like it really goes back to the 1960s. And this is something I've taught in a lot of classes, that the unisex hair salon did not exist before the 1960s. What ended up happening was a lot of these moppy hairstyles came in from the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all these like really famous musicians, and everybody started getting these longer haircuts, and guys were all going into the barber shop. And at that point, the 1960s, most barbers were still working with clippers, doing short square haircuts. A lot of those guys were trained by the U.S. military, or somebody that was trained by the U.S. military during the World War II period, where everybody had really short, faded, tapered haircuts. And they moved into longer hairstyles, right? And as those longer hairstyles came up, barbers just didn't want to spend the time doing them. They didn't want to encourage the trend, you know what I mean? So they just said, no, we don't do that. We just do these clippered haircuts. This is what we do. This is what a barber is, right? That was where the definition got set. It was like, this is a hairstylist, this is a barber. So the irony is that it was arrogance on behalf of the barbers, thinking like, well, you're a guy, you only get to have these 5 haircuts, pick one off the thing, right? Instead, they just went to the hair salon, and hair salons weren't a unisex situation until the 1960s, when guys walked in there and started getting the same haircuts, the Sassoon haircuts that the hairdressers were doing, right? And it took a little while to adjust, because if you really look back at the period, guys and girls were getting identical haircuts, you know what I mean? And so when we started to see a lot of the longer hairstyles, mullets and shags and wolf cuts and the broccoli TikTok thing that we see, these are all different shapes than we've been doing. They're longer hairstyles. They're things that are coming in that require a lot more scissor work and require a lot of things that were primarily hairdressery before, you know what I mean? And so now we're starting to see a new generation of guys coming up with those haircuts, comfortable to go back into the hair salon. And that is a lot of the time where they're going to start going. So I think we're on a bit of a collision course right now, a bit of a precipice of like a major shift in our industry. We already saw a major shift about 10 years ago when everybody like flooded barbershops and they were everywhere. But now I'm starting to see them close down. I'm seeing shops start to struggle. I'm seeing barbershops start to charge salon prices and not offer salon service.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm starting to see the artwork thing happen, and it's like we're looking at all the things that happened to hairdressing before that pushed all the guys out into the barbershop, and I think we're starting to see it happen in barbershops where we're going to start pushing them back into the hair salon because they won't.
So if you're a barbershop owner hearing all of this,
yeah,
and you're taking these observations in,
yeah,
what do you do?
Well, I think the big thing is that what I'm going through that right now with my shops. You know, I've got 3, and one of the shops that I'm working in full time is in Vancouver, and it's the area where we're probably struggling the most to be able to staff for all the reasons I just mentioned. For me, I think what I really want to do is I want to try and get back to basics with it. I think being in the shop more myself is going to be really helpful for that. Spend less time out on the road teaching and spend a little bit more time like in the shop, really like creating the vibe. You know what I mean? The vibe of the shop, I think, matters so much. The level of service, I think, matters so much. The way that people feel when they're in there, and understanding that every time that they walk in that shop might be the last time they're there. You know what I mean? It's that idea of making sure that we don't slide on service, and we don't slide on vibe, and we don't slide on that feeling of community and making people feel included there. Because when you realize that you don't just own clients, right? Like everybody that does clients thinks that they're their clients, right? Like I chimed in on this one thing, I think, that you posted a couple of weeks ago, talking about like barbers leaving and whose client it is. And
yep.
You know, if a barber goes into the computer and takes the information, and they're like, you know, who's in the wrong kind of idea.
Yeah, just to make sure everybody's aware of what he's talking about. I posted something because it was a question and spark conversation. If somebody works in a barbershop and is using the barbershop system to book their clients through, and then that barber then decides to leave that barbershop, should that barber be given their client list, was the question. And then everybody debated it. So that's the post he's talking about.
So the comment that I made on that was that most people think that there's some sort of moral issue attached to that. And really it's a legal issue, not a moral issue. And depending where you are, there's privacy rights. And so if a client gives that information to the shop through the booking system or whatever, it is actually the shop's responsibility to protect that information and not give it out without the client's permission. So it's not a matter of whether or not it's morally, is it okay? It's a matter of legally, is it okay? And it's not. So if a barber goes in there and takes that information, it's actually a crime. And that's unfortunate because nobody really talks about that. They just go, the barbershop owner is an asshole for not giving it to them. Yeah. I have to deal with all of my barbers because I realize that, first of all, clients are not yours. They're not yours. They're not mine. They're independent entities. This might be their last time coming to the shop. It might be their first time coming to the shop. You don't own these people. They're not yours. You earn them every single time you're in the chair. You know what I mean? Have you ever heard that saying, like, success is not owned, it's rented, and the rent is every day? That's clients. That's clients.
Yeah.
Clients aren't owned, they're rented, and the rent is due every single appointment, right? Yeah. Like, that's it. And they can leave, they can go. It doesn't matter. All I know is that my job is to protect that information, not to try and sneak the client. And so when I have a client, like I'm in a situation right now, one of my barbers is leaving to start his own thing. And I'm really encouraging him to do it. I'm trying to give him the sense of like, look, it's going to be tough, but you got this, like you can do it. And the deal is always this: if you can be graceful about it in the shop and not make a huge scene about it and not make a huge, you know, like Instagram posts everywhere, I'm leaving, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm like, if you can just be graceful about it, the minute that anybody walks through the door that is a client that's seen you, that asks for you, I'm going to hand them your card and say, thanks very much. We really appreciate all the years you've been here. And that's it. that's end of conversation. If you can't do it gracefully, if you are going to make a big deal about it, then my self-preservational instincts are going to kick in, and I'm going to try and keep those clients.
Yeah.
All right.
You want to be a dick about it? I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Figure it out.
I mean, it
Yeah,
really is
I
in
hear
your hands. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I've had, over the last 20 years of owning shops, I've had 3 people that have exited well, and I've had 30 people that couldn't get their ego out of the way. You know,
why do you think that is? Because I feel like it, and I mean, I don't even feel like that's just your experience. And again, this is just me guessing. And I don't know. I feel like I have a decent guess when, you know, you're on the road, you're talking to a whole bunch of people all the time, and it's all a diverse group of people, and they share similar experiences where it's just like, yeah, every time a barber leaves, it's like a bad exit. Why do you think that is?
There's a certain amount of familiarity that breeds contempt. And I think that for the same reason that everybody thinks you're rich, Marv.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because the perception, the story we tell ourselves, you know, about other people, the breakdown in communication, maybe, you know what I mean? A lot of it just comes from this. If I have a desire to go do something for myself and I think I can do a good job of it, the story I'm eventually going to tell myself is that I could do a better job of it than the person I'm doing it for.
Right.
Because I'm going to think of all the ways that I should be doing this, or I should get this. And it becomes this narrative in your head that then starts to vilify the other person. It's a very common thing. And it's not something you should really take personally, because we all did it. You know, it's the backside of ambition, right? When you're ambitious, when you want to do something for yourself, you're eventually, the person you're doing it for is standing in your way.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're going to start to resent that person, and you're not going to appreciate that person until there's someone else that's looking at you the same. And I've had, of those 30 people that have left, maybe 5 or 6 of them have gone on to start their own shops. And some of them just left the industry. Some of them left the city, some of them, whatever, left to other shops. But 5 of them started their own shops. And every one of those 5 called me up at some point.
Yep.
To apologize for how they left.
Yep.
Every single one. And
I had that happen with one. He hit me up a few months after, and he's like, yo, bro, I just want to let you know that, you know, I apologize. I get it now. And I'm like, bro, at the end of the day, whatever little feelings I felt towards you at the beginning, I done got through that. I'm not holding on to that type of stuff. Yeah. But I'm glad you now see what I was saying. You get it now. Good luck, buddy.
And to anybody that's going to go out there and open a shop, like, first of all, like, if you're in that state right now where you're working for somebody and you resent the shit out of them, you think you're a terrible boss, you think they're, you know, ripping you off or whatever it is, and you think you're going to go out and do it better, do yourself a favor and have just a little bit of grace for that person while you're doing it. Even if you hate your boss, I want you to think more about your coworkers and what it's going to do to them and their ability to provide for their families. The more you try and take a place down on your way out the door, you're not just hurting the owner, you're hurting the other people that work there. You're hurting your coworkers. You're hurting a lot of people. And ultimately, you're really just hurting yourself. You know, burning bridges in this industry is never worth it, man. It's never, ever worth it. I've worked for so many companies. I've been involved with so many different people in this industry. And the one thing that I refuse to do is burn a bridge. You know what I mean? I try and leave every situation gracefully. I don't want people to have a lot of bad things to say about me. You know what I mean? I don't want to.
Because at the end of the day, just is what it is. Like, some things just don't work. You know, it is what it is. It's just not going to work. So I have to exit, but it doesn't mean I hate you. Even if I can say I hate some of the things you did, it just is what it is. I'm not trying to be beefing with you.
No, I get it. Gratitude matters. Like, being grateful for one day you'll recognize the amount of sacrifice that happens. I am going to say this to you. Barbershops is a terrible long-term investment. Like, a lot of barbers that get into starting their own shops, they do so because they think, well, if I just sacrifice now, like, I remember the first couple of years of my shop, I didn't get paid. Like, I didn't get paid. I was getting repaid a whole bunch of money that I had to put in, and I had to repay this loan that I had to take out. And all the money that I was getting paid was going to the loan. I wasn't getting paid at that point. So, and I thought in my mind, I'm like, okay, but long-term, one day this is going to take care of me. You know what I mean? One day this is going to take care of me. This is a good investment because it's going to take care of me. If you are leasing a space and you don't own your space, then you have a terrible long-term investment.
Yeah.
Because shops, no matter how good they are, no matter how much you put into them, and like, they have a finite lifespan. You know what I mean? And some of it might be 5 to 10 years. Some of it might be 15 to 20. It depends on how the community is and how good you are. It might go longer than that. But it's very rare these days that you see these legacy shops that have been open for years and years and years, just like we used to have, you know, in the 1950s, the mom and pop shop that had been open for 40 years. You know, I mean, you're not seeing a lot of those these days because the market keeps getting more and more expensive, because the rent keeps going up and up and up. You get squeezed from both ends. Your pricing has to go up. Your costs keep going up. Your staffing keeps going up. It is a terrible long-term investment.
And we're at the point where we are, I don't know if it's always been this way, but it at least appears to me to be this way, where it's like, as a culture, we're kind of getting more selfish than we've ever been. I don't know. And it's not just barbering. It's like the whole be your own boss thing that's trickled into everything. It's like, you know, you're working so hard to build this thing and bringing on people who just need one conversation from a client or one Instagram reel to pop up that says, why are you building somebody else's dream when you can build your own? And now it's like all of that hard work you try putting into like making this person be a quality member of your team is trying to figure out a way to dip on you.
Let me tell you that the cost of being your own boss and cost of building your own dream is substantial. I mean, after this many years of doing the things that I've done in this industry, there are points where I have thought to myself, maybe working for somebody else would have been easier. You know what I mean? Maybe I might have made more money actually working for someone else. I wouldn't have had the level of personal satisfaction, but I also wouldn't have had to make the extraordinary sacrifices. You know, there is no success without sacrifice. There isn't. Like nobody's good idea, nobody's cool name for a thing, nobody's like concept is so strong that they're not going to have to put in an extraordinary amount of work or sacrifice for it to be realized, for it to be a real thing. And it's a constant question of is the juice worth the squeeze, right? And with a shop especially, like there's something so cool about playing the music you like, about decorating a shop the way you like it, about creating a vibe and an environment, about putting a team together. There's cool things about that. But the idea is if you put in all of this time and money and hope to get all of that back and then some one day so that it's paying you without you working, a shop is a bad way to do it.
Yeah.
Is a bad way to do it.
Yeah. It's tough.
It is. And I think a lot of people, like myself, you know, when I got into it, I was like, I'm going to swing for the fence, make the coolest shop I can. It became like, my shop is famous. Like people around the world know my shop. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It's still like, okay, cool. Get behind the chair and work, man. You know, somebody got to do the haircuts. And there is always going to be that, like, there's always going to be that ebb and flow. And so for those of you right now that are like thinking about getting into a shop, understand that make sure that it is paying you while you're doing it. Make sure that it is financially viable. Don't let yourself fall into the idea that it's like, I'm sacrificing now so that one day it's going to pay me back. Understand, like, create a strong financial plan so that it actually helps you pay for your life and provide for your family while you're doing it. All right.
Yeah.
The people that are struggling with that right now, that are maybe like, I've had a shop and it's not doing so great, or, you know, just trying to get through this month, or, you know, we're kind of hand to mouth right now. Understand that, like, even after 30 years, your career trajectory is not a single straight line that goes up. Okay. It goes up and then comes down and then goes up a little higher and then comes back down. And it's like the stock market. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes things crash out, but they will come back if you just keep at it. Like not a single successful barber or successful business person I know has had just an upward trajectory where everything's been awesome. It feels so good when things are on the upswing. It feels like you're in the groove. You feel like you're like, you know, making, like, everything you do just turns to gold. You know what I mean? And you're in the flow. Like, everything is working out. Everything is smooth. It's just like, and people convince themselves, well, this is how I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because everything is simple and easy. Right. And we convinced ourselves in relationships, in business, in everything else, that if it's easy, it must be good. If it just flows naturally, it must be good. But what? Maybe
you're just lucky right now. Maybe the stars are just aligned perfect for you right now.
You're delusional. Like maybe
maybe you're delusional.
Like, and the thing is that like not everything is going to be easy. And if it's hard, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. And it doesn't mean that it's not the right thing. Sometimes you need to earn it. Sometimes you need to buckle down and work and bulldog through a thing that you want to have happen. Nothing about starting your own brand is easy, but it's achievable. You know what I mean? It's hard, but it didn't mean it was the wrong thing to do. You know, nothing about starting your own shop or dealing with the opposition that you have to when you have a shop, all those kinds of things, like anything in this industry, even just learning to barber, like the first day of hair school, like I didn't get clippers or scissors or anything. You know what I got? I got a mannequin that I had to learn how to braid. Right. And I was like, okay, well, that's surprisingly difficult to do if you've never done it. You know, like there was girls in my class that were like whipping these things off because they're like, oh, this is like summer camp. Right. But like, I felt like I couldn't get my hands to work. I was like, these meat claws are just like, you know, like, but it was like, it was hard and dumb and I hated it, but it was like, okay, cool. I'm going to keep doing this. You know what I mean? I'm going to keep pushing through the hard thing. Because if all you ever do in life is the things that are easy and come naturally, you have no character and no resolve. You ultimately are just coaxed into being a very weak person. And
in fact,
you cannot be successful in a competitive industry if you're just weak and have no resolve. Okay. One of the best things that I do for people that seems like the worst thing you can do for somebody is this. I've been at a lot of shows with you, Marv, and a lot of other people, and people come up, they're like, hey man, I love your shop. I'm going to start my own shop. What advice do you have? And might seem counterintuitive, but I usually look them dead in the eye and I say, don't do it. You don't have what it takes. And it's not because I believe that, because I don't even know these people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe it, but I do know this. So many days in the last 30 years of doing this career to try and get where I am, so many days, the only thing that got me through the hardship that I was facing or the challenge that I was facing was the deep desire to prove a motherfucker wrong. Nothing is worse than somebody betting against you and you proving them right. Like for me, it was just, this person bet against me. I'm going to prove them wrong. And sometimes that's the motivation that you need to get through. You know what I mean? And you need to be able to like pull up your pants and be like, look, things aren't going smooth right now, but I'm going to get to the other side of this. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to lead my team to the other side of this. I'm going to, you know, make my business happen. I'm going to lead my relationship to the other side of this. Like we have become a culture where everyone is so obsessed with comfort and ease that we don't, that we've somehow manically justified that it's okay to abandon things when they're hard. Right. And it's not okay. Like it just makes you weak. It just makes you a person of low character and no resolve.
I was having a conversation with a client a few weeks back and we were talking about something. I don't remember it specifically, but I was telling him how in order to do something he was trying to do, you just have to do something. I forget exactly what it was, but the point that I'm going to make is once I told him that, he was just like, but Marv, it's not that easy. And I'm like, bro, I never said it was. I never said it was that easy. I said, but then the question is, why do you expect it to be so easy?
Yeah.
And I said, and I'm just asking you this, like, I'm asking you this to think about it because we all deal with this. We just expect things to be easy. And if we're going to be able to accomplish, you know, things that most people don't get to accomplish or do the things that most people don't get to do, or even build a something that we're really proud of, most of it is not going to be easy. But for whatever reason, we just expect things to be easy. I said, stop expecting things to be easy, bro. It doesn't have to be easy. Life is hard.
Do you have
choose your heart, right?
Choose your heart. Exactly. Like, do you have something that you're profoundly like proud of?
Yeah. Right.
What is it? Like, what's something you're super proud of having achieved?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were just saying it like as a ponder, like a thought thing.
It doesn't have to be a big thing. Like what's something that you personally are proud of?
I mean, personally proud of. This is a great question, but I don't know. I just from a selfish standpoint, I'm just like proud that I try my best every day to like do loving things and help people. Like I because I genuinely try each and every day to be whatever version of a good human, what I think a good human is, whether it's a good father, good, husband, good friend, a mentor. Like I'm very proud of the fact that I dedicate a lot of time and energy to trying to improve those things. I'm proud of my barber shop. Obviously, I built that. It's a good staple in the community. The people in it are amazing people. I'm blessed to have them. I'm fortunate to have a dope team and stuff like that. So, I guess some of the cliche things you'd say you're proud of. But that's a good question, because I haven't sat back and just thought about, like, what am I really proud of? You have me something. I'm gonna be thinking about that later.
There's a lot of things in there, though. But I mean, like, all of those things are good things. They're not easy things.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me tell you a quick story from a trip that I took this year. Like, I actually went down and worked on a cattle ranch in Montana for a month. All right, and it was purely to see if I could. It was purely to see if I had what it took to do. It's a weird dream that I've had. It was a thing where I wanted to retire eventually and have like a small hobby ranch. And I realized that if I did that today, I wouldn't know what to do with it. And so I needed to learn all those things, but also I wanted to learn if it was what I actually wanted, or if it was just some romantic, stupid idea in my head. And a lot of people don't really do that. They just have these dreams. They never test out whether or not they actually want them. They just condition themselves to want them. But what I did is, anyway, one of the things I'm really proud of is I spent a month working with these 3 cowboys on this 2,500 acre cattle ranch in Montana that's owned by this family. One of the cowboys is the owner, Brent, like really great old cowboy, had tons to teach. I'd go and saddle up a horse every day and go collect cows in them and go put them through the chute and all the things that you do on a ranch. It's extraordinary experience. And every day something hard would happen. Every day it would be like, well, let's give him something slightly harder to do. Let's give him slightly harder. Let's give him a chance to see if he knows what he's doing. And these guys taught me a lot about responsibility and a lot about just doing stuff you're scared of. And on the last day I was there, I had shown up in the morning. He says, all right, well, we're doctoring bulls today. And my deal with myself before I went to this place was, no matter what they ask you to do, the answer is yes. Like, you show up.
So what does doctoring bulls mean?
Yeah. So
say it in a quick way.
So
got it.
Doctoring bulls is, giving them the snip. Sometimes what happens is bulls, you can put a band on them, but sometimes they get what's called a one nutter, which means that both testicles haven't descended. Band doesn't do anything, so you actually have to surgically do that. But to do that, you have to subdue them. So here we are down at the corral, and he looks at me and goes, "You're the head man today." And I'm like, I have no idea what that is, but okay. And I look over at Riley, their cowboy, and he's like, "Okay, so I can see you don't know what that is." I'm like, "I don't. Help me out." So he's like, what's going to happen is, Dad's going to go in there. He's going to rope him from the back foot, and he's going to drag him backwards with his horse, which means the bull is going to get low to the ground. He says, that means when that happens, you run in there, you put your elbow behind his left horn, you grab his leg, and you roll back, and the bull's going to come right with you. And I'm like, so I'm wrestling a bull to the ground. And he's like, yeah. And then you got to pin him down and calm him down. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah, right on it.
So he gets the first one. Riley's like, go, go. And I run in there and I do the thing he says, and I get him and I grab the leg and I pull him back, and the bull comes with me, and I pin him down, and he's mooing, and I'm like, shh, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. I'm calming him down, and he calms right down. Riley goes in and does what he does. We let him up. He runs away. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm a cowboy. Like, I did the damn thing. You know what I mean? And so I was feeling pretty good about that after the first one. And Brett says, hey, we got a couple more. Are you ready for the next one? I'm like, you bet. Let's go. And this one came in a lot bigger than the last one. And he shows up, and he, like, same thing. He got him down. He's pulling him back. Riley's like, go, go. I run in there. I try to grab and do the thing that I just did on the last one. And for some reason, it didn't work this time. Next thing you know, I'm leaning back, and I'm like hanging on to this guy in a headlock, and I'm getting thrashed around by this bull, and I'm trying to not die. And it was quite a wrestling match, and I ended up getting him down. and I pinned him, and I was breathing heavy, and like the adrenaline was insane. Like I almost couldn't feel my hands. The adrenaline was so insane because this was like super scary out of the gate. And I was sitting there, pinned him down, just trying to catch my breath. Riley does what he does, and I get up, and they're all laughing at me. I was like, what's up? And apparently my belt buckle had broken in the wrestling match and had swung open.
Nice.
It was broken, and I was like, well, there it is. Broke my belt buckle. And so my pants are falling down the rest of the day. I had 3 more bulls to wrestle. It was scary shit, but I went in every single time and I said, yeah. And it was hard, and I worked hard. Everything they asked me to do, I did. It was all hard work. Ranch work is hard work. It's hard physical work. Everything about it's hard. I loved it so much. Like, I was so proud of learning to do it. And the part that made me most proud was at the end of the day, when I went to say goodbye to that family that had taken me in to teach me something that I was really wanting to learn about myself. Brent came out of the back room and he handed me a belt buckle that he had won when he was riding bulls in 1978. And the thing you have to understand about cowboy culture and belt buckles is you don't buy a buckle, you win one or you're given one. It's like a point of pride. It's a trophy. So when an old cowboy gives you his trophy, it's an incredible sign of respect. And to have gone and earned that man's respect, he is kind and salty and tough and everything that I admire about a good man. And for him to hand you a trophy of his to give to you is like, here, hopefully we'll see you back again.
It's a big deal.
That is the thing I'm most proud of in the last year, was earning that man's respect by doing hard things and learning a lot about what I'm capable of as a man. And it really showed me what I'm capable of, not just as a man, as a human being, but as a business owner, as every other type of thing I have to be in this life, is that you have to be able to stand up under adversity. You have to be able to dive at the things that are hard. You have to be able to put yourself in and trust yourself to be able to perform and show up. You know what I mean? For your family, for your business, for the community. These are the most important things in life, is I think, as a man, knowing that you can show up and that you can handle it no matter what it is,
Barbers, you just took us all on a journey, bro. You did, man. That was beautiful. And I hope you guys listening to this live, I know you guys are going to listen on the playback too, so you can let us know in the chat. I hope you have gotten a lot of value out of this, because I know I have. I know I'm sitting here and just listening to you, bro, and you just got me thinking. And I feel like I'm one of the people that just got to load up my phone, sitting back and enjoying it, man. Like, you've made me you've given me some epiphanies, right? You've made me think about some things that I haven't thought about in a long time, and I feel like you've added a ton of value to this platform, bro. And I'm grateful. My whole idea of starting this whole thing, you see, we called it Gem Talk. Like, I was doing the Barbers podcast thing for a while. Now I'm like, I want to call it Gem Talk, because I want to drop some gems that could even expand beyond just barbering, right? Like, I'm 15 years into this thing. You're 30, so you've been probably through this a few times. So I understand when you like took your break. Like, I even went on your Instagram. I think it was like June of last year. It transformed from like barbering to just like cowboy, like Yellowstone, and I'm like, I get it, because like I get it, and just that's again why I made this platform called Gem Talk, because I want to be able to just help people in ways that expand beyond barbering. And even if it's not coming from me specifically, I just want to do my part to bring on people who can do that, man. And you've definitely done it today.
Thank you, man. I mean, and you know what? The appreciation's mutual. Like, I think what you've done with this thing is awesome. I remember the first Gem Talk. I watched it, and because I remember when you were saying, what should we call this thing? And I mean, I've been watching you for a really long time, and I think what you bring to this industry, I have just nothing but deep respect for. I think that what you've done is admirable. I think that you've always been a voice of reason. I think when things seem like they're getting a little crazy, in the debates and what everybody thinks is nuts, I've always found you to be really, really straight down the middle, and I think fair and reasonable. And I think sometimes we need a voice of reason, but also one of the things
I try to be.
About you too, though, man, is that like you also understand that like everybody, like there are so many different types of barbers, and there's not a one fit answer for every situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, certain types of shops are struggling and other ones aren't, or, you know, like other people have a different idea of what a barber shop should be or what barbering should be or whatever is personal to their own experience. And you've always been really good about like finding that balance there and not making it too much about this is what should happen and this is what is.
See, and that's what, and I love that you say that, and I appreciate that, because that's what I try to do. And it's just funny when you'll have people that, you know, how do they get, and it's just like, you're always trying to tell people what they should do, and how, there's more than one way. I'm like, to those people, I don't really respond anymore. I don't really do a lot of the social media stuff like that anymore, unless
Sure.
I'm just feeling it for that day.
Yeah.
But you know, there has been a time or two where I've responded and I'm just like, you clearly don't follow me. And if you do follow me, you've maybe recently started following me, because if this is your view, just ride out with me for a little bit longer and you'll see why it may
like,
look a little different in like 3 months.
Sometimes I feel it's funny. Sometimes I get just a little spicy. I don't know. Maybe it's like you just get that little thing where you're like, I'm gonna start addressing the trolls today, and then
I got time today. You look at my wrist. I look at my wrist. I got time today. Some days I got time.
I got 5 minutes. Like I didn't really start doing that stuff until I started doing YouTube. YouTube trolling is like an entirely different level of trolling. And it's almost kind of funny. Like I almost kind of love responding to people on YouTube. I feel like I have a little bit more time to do it. And I mean, surprisingly, I only have about like maybe 10 or 15 videos that I've put out that has, you know, all these followings, but it's because they're these instructional things. And so sometimes I'll get comments on a video that's like 5 years old and somebody will be just losing their mind about it. And I'll just be like, cool. And it's always guys that have no content of their own, that have no followers, no nothing. Not that that's the only thing that makes it valuable.
No, but it's just they're just there to troll and just they feel like they have the most to say.
Yeah, and it's like you're clearly an expert in this field. Why aren't you making videos? You're such an expert that you're critiquing my shit. So like make your own.
Yeah,
I would love it. I'd be into it.
Yeah, I love the trolling on TikTok is a little where I have fun sometimes. Is I'll go back. I do it on Instagram every once in a while, but TikTok tends to be a little bit more fun. But even a lot of it now, I just let everybody else do it, and I try to like.
I love the. I mean, I did the Instagram and the YouTube thing as soon as TikTok started becoming the thing. I was already kind of getting tired, and I was like, I think I tried for like a minute, and then I'm like, I don't know if I have another one of these in me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know so much that I care that much. You know what I mean about the TikTok thing.
The TikTok one is fun. It's so different than the Instagram and you. It's just different. Like it's hard. It is definitely the one where I will say you are a lot more like your whole thing where you were talking about earlier about being trapped in a box and presenting yourself a certain way and all of that. TikTok kind of like broke that. It like broke it because like you could be, you know, just all over the place on there. And it's like an okay thing to do, you know? And it's like, I don't know. It tends to be just more fun over there than some of these other ones. I'd say overall.
House party versus some sort of curated.
Like I think if if you were in a different spot in life where you were taking that type of stuff serious and you were like TikToking during the ranch and stuff, I think that would have been. It'd have been just a fun thing, but
I mean, I might end up doing that down the road. I have like a bunch of other ranch experience stuff that I'm doing. Eventually, I kind of stepped back again and took more of a break from things.
Yeah.
I actually did a bunch of stuff this year I didn't even really post about. Like I went down to Los Angeles, and I helped evacuate horses in the fires that were there. So I was doing that whole stuff, and a lot of people are like, well, why didn't you share about that? And I'm like,
why didn't you? Is it you just like battling yourself type of thing, like trying to show yourself like some stuff I just need to do without this thing type of thing?
Yeah, sometimes. And it's like, are you about it or are you just about it? You know what I mean?
Right.
I think sometimes we need to do stuff that we don't share with other people, that is just for us to show us who we are.
I agree.
And I think also if those things involve somebody else's tragedy, maybe just don't. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to ever try and make myself look good on the back of somebody else's suffering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that we all win or we all lose.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely a tough balance. Like, I agree with I agree with that. Like, there's no disagreement from me. I just think it can be tough sometimes when you do got to find that balance of do I post this because it could inspire people and it could, do A, B, and C, or, do I not post this because people are going to say that I'm only posting it to look a certain way. And you kind of can battle yourself. So that can be a tricky space to dance into.
Do you find that you have like pressure from people to like speak up about issues that you don't really want to talk about or you don't really have a strong opinion on?
Bro, the thing about me, and I don't know if it's like, I don't know. I obviously how you're raised plays into a lot of things, right? But like, I don't know, man. The way to get to the point where I'm at right now, like there's you can't really get me to do something I don't want to do. Like if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And I don't care what you think about me. I don't care how you feel about me. I don't care what you tell other people about me. Like if you want me to do said thing and I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Right. So there's that part of it. Then there's also, I guess, the contrarian side of me too, where it's like, if you're really going to try to pressure me or guilt me into it, that's not going to help your case. I can also look at it from the perspective now that I've evolved in some of my awareness where I can try to see if it's just me being a contrarian or not. But I mean, ultimately that's a long-winded answer to simply say, like, at least what I'm thinking of right now, I can't really feel like I personally feel the pressure to speak up on certain things, especially if I don't have a strong opinion on it or something that I've really thought through. I feel like anything I'm going to speak on is going to be something I'm really going to think through. Sure. Or if I haven't thought it through to where I can really look at it from a lot of different ways, I try not to speak on it.
Yeah, I think the danger too is that, like, in the being put into a box, so to speak, is that once you've said a thing, it lives there forever, it seems, and you
can't change your mind. You're not allowed to
with new information, right?
No, you're not allowed to.
Yeah, so I always try and avoid political things. You know what I mean? I don't really get involved in politics. If you don't talk about it in your chair, then don't talk about it on the internet. You know what I mean? Like for me, I was raised in that, don't talk about sex or politics or religion. You know what I mean? Like try and avoid those topics of conversation. So that's a thing where I feel like people, especially these days when things being so divisive and politically charged, people just always seem to want you to weigh in on things that I just don't want to,
what do you think? And then the last thing you could say is, I don't care. Like, you can't say that.
No,
right?
No, that's
you can't say that. Like, I don't care. Like,
I mean,
and that may very well be the truth. Like, even as messed up as that could be, it's just simply, I don't care. I got like all these other things that take priority in my thinking, in my energy, in my time, and in what matters to me. Like, that takes priority over this thing that for whatever reason you think matters a lot. Maybe it does matter a lot to you.
Yeah.
To you, it matters a lot, but to me, I don't care. But that's not really something you could just say, especially on a very polarizing topic.
I think that's the thing, though, is that everything has become polarizing these days, right? And the one thing I'm so grateful for from this career and my own, all the things that I've had happen in the last probably 15, 20 years. I'm so glad that I've got to travel.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I've got to meet so many people. People are like, oh, how'd you get so many followers on Instagram? I'm like, I shook their hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've met so many of the people that follow me, you know what I mean? Just by being out there and meeting people and going to shows and traveling around and doing education and then, do my own little travels and journeys. I love it because it makes you realize how much more the same we are than different.
Exactly.
Like no matter what you think politically, no matter what you think, financially or religiously or anything like that, most people are the same.
Yeah.
Most people they just want a good life with their family. They want safety. They want, they want to be able to provide, like they just want to have a nice little quiet piece of happiness. The majority of people want that.
Yeah.
we would all probably agree on a lot more things, if we weren't being told how much we disagree on them, if we weren't being told all of this nonsense. And the truth is that if you never travel outside of your community, your state, your town, your whatever, you have a very, very narrow view of the world and of humanity. And if you don't ever see it for yourself, you'll believe whatever you're told. And truth is that I have been to every continent. I have been to cultures that are well different than my own. I've been in situations with people that are incredibly kind and awesome and warm and can't speak a lick of English. And I've stood on stage alongside people that I didn't understand when they were talking, and we hugged at the end of it. You know what I mean? Because there's just commonality there, and people are more like you than you think. Everyone.
It's crazy to think that you could be in a similar situation, at least in America. You'd be in a similar situation where you're just like vibe so well with said person for a set amount of years, and then one conversation comes up about something, and then you see it different, and now like the whole thing is ruined. It's like I cut this person off. It's like, wait a minute, really?
I'm in Canada right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm from Canada, and like if you believe the news, like our countries went from being best friends to being in a war with each, or a trade war with each other, and it's like that absolutely does not make sense to me. The funny thing is that the way it's being framed is that the U.S. is subsidizing Canada and giving us billions of dollars each year, but trade deficits basically mean that one country buys a lot of things that it doesn't already make from another country. And it just happens that your country buys a lot more from us than we buy from you, based on sheer numbers. But if you break it down by citizens, we buy 5 times the amount of stuff from you that you buy from us. It just really, the math doesn't necessarily work. So when someone can pitch it to you saying, hey, your tax money is going to support another country, which is not the truth. Of course, people are going to get pissed about that. It's all how it gets framed, and it's like,
and why would they actually take some time to look into that?
No, of course not, because it's much easier to watch TikTok and go, I'm pissed off about this, and be like, I would be too. I would be pissed off if that was the truth. So I totally get it. And having that level of understanding for each other, though, like I say, it's a thing that comes from getting out there and traveling and seeing something different than what you know. It's just trying to understand where people are coming from. That's where empathy is born. You know what I mean? Empathy is born in that.
And it's the understanding too, like you do not have to have an opinion on everything. You don't. And my wife's cousin, I forget exactly how he says it. He's like, you do not have a right to your opinion. He frames it like different, but it's like, you don't have a right to your opinion. You have your right to have an educated, he goes into this whole spiel, but the moral, the point that he's trying to make is that like, you shouldn't probably just strongly believe something that you haven't actually really done your homework on. You're fighting with people and ending friendships, ending relationships, and you really haven't done your homework. You're just repeating what somebody else told you without actually looking into it. There's been a few times, not even just political, but because that's kind of sprinkled in a bunch of different things, but there's different like little sports memes or something I come across. I'm like, yo, that's wild. And I share it. Yo, did you see this? And I sent it to one of my homies group chats. And then right after I sent it, I'm like, wait a minute, let me confirm this is actually legit. And then I confirmed it was legit. And I'm like, okay, unsend or disregard. That's actually not correct information. So I've done that a couple times. So now, I try to be aware before I like share anything or bring something up. I'm like, let me just make sure this is actually accurate first, or else I'm gonna look like an ass. But again, how many of us don't do that? How many of us are just?
I think, we could go on this one all day. I think one thing I did forget to mention that I want to just address to a couple barber people right now, especially you new guys that are coming up. I want you to understand what some major assets as far as your personality goes behind a chair. One is what Marv and I are doing right now, which is the ability to put yourself into just about any situation and be able to thrive in a conversation. You almost have to read the room for the person that's sitting in your chair. Some people want to talk, some people don't want to talk. You know what I mean? But understanding that you can be a bit of a social chameleon with your energy is a really, really important thing to being successful as a barber. So being able to get behind a chair and just being able to like mirror people's energy back and forth to them. You know what I mean? It allows them to feel heard. It allows them to feel like they're comfortable. Those are big things.
The other day, real quick, don't let you point where you're going. It was funny because talking about this, the other day, I had a couple clients early. I had an 8 a.m. and I had a 9 a.m. And my 8 a.m. hard left politically.
Right.
9 a.m. hard right politically. Right. So then when they both left, I looked at one of my barbers. I'm like, yo, don't tell me I don't have the most diverse clientele, bro. It doesn't, you know what I mean? And that's just like one extreme example. But, you know, you'll have then like another debate always is Jordan, LeBron. You'll have a hard Jordan. Then right after that, I'm cutting hard LeBron. I'm like, I try to, like you said, it's that social chameleon of just like,
yeah, man,
you know, we good, man. Let's just have a conversation, have some fun. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. That's funny.
I think, like, as I said earlier, like your opinion is what makes you special, right? But the gift is knowing when to share your opinion and knowing when to shut the hell up.
Yeah, facts.
I mean, and listen to somebody else.
Just being curious.
Yep, being curious is the best way to do that. If you want people to find you interesting, become interested.
Mm-hmm.
So like be interested in people. In fact, if you want to know how to handle people behind a chair, read a book. It's an old book by like, it's a little outdated, but it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's probably one of the best books I've ever read on social dynamics and how to make people converse and how to get along with people. And so it's a really interesting book to read. Take the Coles notes, whatever it is. You will learn some absolute gems on how to build a clientele and how to build relationships with people in your chair. The other thing I wanted to say, two more things I wanted to say. Number one, learn about how to act professional. And that's one thing that I'm noticing is in a steep decline, is that people are opting for artistic integrity over professionalism, and the two are not mutually exclusive. The more professional you can be behind a chair, like, you know, like Marv was just saying, when you can handle somebody who's hard left and hard right with the same level of professionalism, regardless of what you think about their politics or their ideas, making sure you behave professionally. That means attentive. That means paying attention to the person. And that means that when a person comes into the shop, the first thing you do is you kind of pick your head up, you say hi to them, you make them feel welcome. You know what I mean? You act with a certain amount of authority around them. And that is essentially the basis of professionalism. When people are on the phone, you're yes, no, sir, yes, ma'am, all those kinds of things. These are little things that go a really long way in your ability to do your job professionally. It's not just a given that somebody's going to sit in your chair, get a haircut, and walk out the door happy because you're really good at cutting hair. They feel like they've come to a professional or a professional environment or to a professional to get that done so that they can be handled professionally. So learn what that actually means. And if you ever want to go out and start your own shop one day, or you want to start your own chair, or you want to do your own thing, here's the book that I want you to read. It is called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And it is essentially going to be a crash course in all of the things that you will have to do to run a business that you probably didn't think of. And that's a great book for anybody that's going to go out and start their own business. I highly suggest reading it. A friend of mine that owned a clothing store gave it to me before I opened my very first hair salon. And it was the best thing I could have read. And it's still one of the best things you can read. It's called The E-Myth, or what stands for the entrepreneurial myth, which is the weird beliefs that we have around what it means to be an entrepreneur, but also it prepares you for all of the jobs and roles that you're now going to have to take on to be a successful business owner.
I love that. And you know what's great too is I got to read that book because I haven't read that one. And Basio is big on that book. A lot of other people that I've been fortunate enough to have a good conversation with that, you know, seem to have the head on their shoulders from a, you know, society would deem them as successful viewpoint, have read that book. So I got to dive into that. But the other thing I want to say is like, it is interesting how, you know, a lot of the people that I bring on Gem Talk, we've like read a lot of the same books, bro. You know, like when you're talking about how to win friends and influence people and stuff like that, it's just, you know, you start to see some common patterns, you know, and that's what I always say to like people, you know, barbering related or even outside of barbering, you know, when you you see people doing things that you want to do. Try to do some of the things that they do,
Yeah.
and if the example I always use with barbers, when we're talking about like books or courses or going to classes and stuff like that, I'm like, I can't ever recall meeting a successful barber that wasn't like a reader or goes to classes or has done like some form of like mentorship or like spent money in these ways to acquire knowledge. I can't recall a time that has ever happened. Whereas anytime I've met a barber that has been struggling or wanted to be done or doesn't know what to do, there's never been a time when I'm like, well, do you, you go, you read books, it's always no. You listen to audiobooks, it's always no. You doing any online courses or academies, it's always no. So I always try to like just say to people, hey, if you want to do what the people who are doing the things you want to do are doing, like try to do some of the things they're doing. And one of those things for sure is reading. So read more, man. Get the audio book, listen to it on the way to the shop and on the way home. Even if you did that at bare minimum, the amount that you would learn, and just your car rides to work over the next 6 months you would be amazed like how much you would know that you otherwise wouldn't have known.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big one is getting into stuff that challenges you as well. You know what I mean? Challenges the things you already think. I think that one of the biggest, most dangerous things that Instagram has provided for us in the last 10 years is an echo chamber of our own ideas.
Yep. That's social media in general. These algorithms, they're great, but they're harmful too.
Completely. And it's a thing where you need to pull yourself out of that sometimes and look for things that challenge your thinking. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean you have to change your opinion. It doesn't mean you have to change what you think about something. But if you can't defend your thoughts, if you can't defend what you think about something, then you're not really sure if you actually think that or not, or if you're just regurgitating somebody's information they've told you. So when it comes to the idea of like how to be successful, try and find something you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I agree with that. Okay, cool. Read it. You know what I mean? See if it can defend itself. You know what I mean? Or can you defend what you think? You know what I mean? Because you're right. Like a lot of people are like, well, I just wish this was working better. I'm like, well, great. You know what I mean? Like wish in one hand and shit in the other. I'll tell you which one fills up first. You know what I mean? That's the thing. You need to actually take some sort of action. And people think that maybe reading books is not taking action, but it is. Like changing the way you think.
Only reading books is not, right? But you implementing the stuff you learn in the book is absolutely taking action, and it is tougher nowadays with these algorithms to, get a well-rounded view and see things from other sides, because the algorithms serve us what we want to see. And like, it's like a big confirmation bias thing, but that's where we got to be active on our own end and be proactive to sometimes actively look at things from the other side of whatever the thing is. And that's will help you, see if what you think actually stands to the test of you getting evidence to support it. Or guess what, guys, you might change what you think. You might change what you believe. And guess what? That's okay. Don't ever let nobody convince you otherwise. I know the internet doesn't let you change your mind, but it's the internet. Put your phone down, turn it off, get off of it. It's okay. It's okay to change your mind based on new information.
That is an extreme sign of intelligence. It's not stubbornly sticking to your point when you can't defend it is not intelligence. It's actually the opposite of intelligence. It's pure stupidity. Because in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, if you're not willing to change your mind about something, then you are delusional. And so when you are trying something with your business or trying something with your career and it just doesn't work, if you keep trying it because you're convinced that it's going to work, you know what I mean? You might not be sane. I mean, sometimes that happens. Again, up against oppositional things, you have to have this unwavering belief in yourself that you can. But there comes a point where you have to realize you're like, maybe this is not the approach. Maybe something else needs to be tried. Maybe some sort of new information is going to show me that I should be doing it differently. And if your ability to adapt to new information and change the way you think about a thing is a sign of intelligence. So don't take it as a sign of weakness, or, you know, you're flip-flopping or whatever. No, it's just new information is going to change your perspective on things.
Yeah. And anybody that tries to make you feel bad for changing your mind based on new information, so, bro, let them be where they at. It's so funny, but my barbers will tell you I'm known for that. I try to, because I like scream that from the mountaintop. So there's been just times in the shop, for example, where, you know, I see things differently. So it's just like, well, you said, I know what I said, but I changed my mind. I got new information. I changed my damn mind. So, you know, you do got to find the fine line of like if we're bringing it to a practical example of, like, you know, building a business or going after something, you do got to be persistent, because sometimes it's just you got to stay consistent and persistent and keep going in order to create it. But at the same time, you also got to know when it's time to like divert in your course. You know, if you run into that detour, like you can keep hitting your car into it, but like, or you could just you take a left and get off and go up that way, and it might work out better for you. So it can be tough, but that's just what life is, right? It's just tough.
Yeah, I think it's that balance of knowing when it's time to throw in the towel and knowing when it's time to dig in and work for it. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's always going to be a clear choice. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, I can do one of two things. You start looking at the possible outcomes of both, and you go, okay, it's either going to be worth, like I say, the juice is worth the squeeze, or it isn't. You know what I mean? I've got a couple
barbers.
I got a couple fun projects that I'm working on coming up, and I'm kind of excited to dive into them. You know what I mean? Like I'm actually launching a scissor brand, which I'm really excited about.
I'm gonna need those. Let me know. I need those.
Yeah, you'll like those. I'm launching a scissor brand because I felt like, and this is not directed to anyone in particular, but I feel like as an industry, I feel like we've been ripping people off for shears for a long time. I don't really particularly, because I've been doing this for such a long time, I've never really seen a huge big difference between my $200 shears and my $1,200 shears.
Shears might be, I mean, there's like a lot of ripoffs that be happening, if we're being in our industry specifically, but like shears might be the biggest one.
It might be. I mean, I personally feel like I'm like, oh, it might be too much. And so I wanted to make something, you know, affordable. I wanted to make something that's cool and that has actually like, you know, a reasonable price point for young people getting in, especially being as there's so many young guys getting in to the industry. And I think that it's really tough. The gear is getting expensive, man. You know what I mean? And I know that there's a lot of cost that goes into developing gear and stuff like that, but I think there's also some opportunity in there. So I'm doing that. And TV show too, that we filmed a pilot for. Tiny teaser for it. Think like Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, but for barbershops, and you know, traveling around the world and getting to interact with different people, different cultures, different experiences through the lens of the barbershop and what it means to the community and how we enter in. Like Bourdain's show is never about cooking, you know, and it's not a show about cutting hair, but it is a show that is kind of adjacent to the barber industry and some of the more fascinating things that it does and the more fascinating people that are in it.
Where do we go to cast to get on the show? Where do we apply?
Watch my Instagram and you'll see some information about it as it comes up. But yeah, that's going to be happening later this year. So
that's cool, man. I'm excited for you, bro. I'm super grateful that you've taken we're 2 hours and 18 minutes in, which
that just disappeared.
Yeah, which 2 hours and 18 minutes in. So we've been on this for a while, and you've been nothing but a blessing to this platform. So guys, if you haven't already followed Matty Conrad, make sure you do. YouTube and Instagram, right? That's where you mainly do your work, mainly Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, it's just @Matty Conrad, and then YouTube, Matty Conrad Grooming. Or if you just search Matty Conrad, I'll come up. Or GQ Beard Tutorial or Internet Beard Guy. I think I'm.
Yeah, it is interesting when people are recognizing you from that, right? Like me for years now, and I'm assuming you dealt with the same thing. Going to barbering events, like people knew who you were, but then like you step outside, nobody knows who you are, right? So I always thought it was interesting watching how some people move like they're world famous, and it's like, bro, you're a little weird. I'm gonna let you do your weird thing over there, but you know, for me, for the longest, it was like that, where people knew me at the barbering events, but aside from that, they didn't really know me. But now, because of TikTok, in the style of content I'm creating over there and how that algorithm works. There are a lot of times now, pretty much every day, somewhere I go where somebody's like, "You're the dude that does the barber videos," you know, and they recognize me. And it is a different type of thing than the barbering thing, but it is an interesting thing because I'm sure you, the first time that happened, when they're like, "Are you the GQ guy or you're the internet beer guy?" You're probably like, "Wait, people only recognize me at barbering events." So,
yeah,
or
it does.
now it's outside of that.
The other day we were on a plane back from New York, and as me and my girlfriend are sitting next to me, and this guy is just sitting in the window, and he keeps like doing one of these things, looking down, and then just kind of looking at his phone, and
that's the thing, you know, the look now, you know when it's coming now.
But my girlfriend didn't, and she was just kind of like, "What's going on? This guy's kind of creeping me out." And I was like, I think he recognizes me. She's like, "Why would he recognize you?" I'm like, I have this thing on the internet. And she's like, "People recognize you from that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's weird." And then of course he did. He was like, "Hey, are you the guy?" And I was like, "Yes, I am. Yeah. Nice to meet you."
They go, "I know it's weird." Is it a weird question? It's like, it's not weird anymore, bro. It's not.
It happens.
As weird as you think it is.
At airports, especially, but like at Disneyland, for some reason, every single time. Most times when I'm just out and about, like it never happens at home because people all seem to know me here. But like when I'm traveling somewhere else, like I've been in bars in New York City. Yeah. Like every single time I'm in a bar in New York City, somebody comes up and asks me about the beard videos. You know, on planes. I was in Florida one time at a tourist thing, and like people were. It's just very strange, and it's always really flattering. First of all, it's really flattering.
And people are reasonable too, right? Like they're not like they're not like annoying like you think they might be, or if you see it on, you know, a viral video, people just haggling. It's like, at least at this point where you're at, I'm assuming, because I'm not where you are with that, but like from the TikTok thing, they're reasonable. It's usually quick, they're excited, and then they carry on.
I think I was part of for me it was different because I was part of the first wave. I guess like we call it, like, you know, first wave. I guess as much as I absolutely hate the word influencer, like I hate the word influencer. I think it's I love to have influence, but I don't want to be an influencer. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because I think that it's like being something below a celebrity. And should be, because I think celebrity is a bad word too. But it's one of those things where I think it's just early on people didn't know what to do with that feeling. Right? Because they're like, "Oh, this is a new thing, and I recognize this person from this new thing, and they're like a big deal on this new thing." And so, you know, but now we're so like, like you have a YouTube or you have a TikTok, or congratulations, like, you have an OnlyFans. Fucking everybody does. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, whatever. It's not special anymore, right? I think that Andy Warhol said that in the future, everyone's gonna be famous for 15 minutes, right? I think everybody took that as literal. They were like, "Oh, where's my 15 minutes of fame?" But what he really meant is like when everyone is special, nobody is special anymore. Exactly. And I think that like we've gotten past that phase of everyone being special. So now it's like it's cool. I remember the first year that Mark Bustos and I did the BTC show ever was like 2015. We were invited by Behind the Chair to come and do their show, and neither of us, we were like, okay, that's wild, but we both had somehow exploded on Instagram around that time, 2014 maybe. And we went and we did the show, and right after we got off stage, there was a lineup for more than 2 hours to take selfies with us. And we were just looking at each other going like what the hell?
Same pose over and over.
Yeah, like what is happening here? And it was literally 2 hours long, and we were like,
that's crazy.
This is insane. And then eventually, like, all of that kind of subsided and went away. And so I think that's kind of what's happening now. You know what I mean? It's we've kind of moved past that idea of, okay, this is a very special thing. You know, everybody has this now, or most people have it, or a lot of people have it, and so it makes it somewhat less special. I'm sorry, I know I'm moving the camera around here, but my dog just showed up, and I feel like I need to introduce you to my dog. This
okay. What? It's a boy or a girl?
It's a boy. His name is Trigger. He's an Australian Shepherd.
Oh man, Trigger.
Yeah, he's named after Willie Nelson's guitar and Roy Rogers' horse. Hey, buddy. Hi, buddy.
Trigger has made an appearance.
That is.
What's up?
Hey, buddy.
Beautiful.
Come on in. Yeah. So that's Trigger.
Trigger is beautiful.
He is gonna.
Good for you, bro.
He's gonna want to come sit on my lap. Anyway, I just.
I would love to show you my dogs, but I have to move all this to go downstairs. So we just hanging out with Trigger today.
Yeah, Trigger. Oh, thank you. Yeah, Trigger's. He's a lot, but he's a pretty awesome dog. He's a really good boy.
Yep. It's gonna, the puppy stage is a little rough. It's a little rough, but then you're gonna get through it, and it's gonna be a beautiful thing.
It has its moments. Anyway, I should probably get on and walk him and get his craziness out of there. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we?
Nah, I just want to make sure you guys follow Matty Conrad again on Instagram and YouTube if you haven't done so already. And from me and from everybody else, we just want to say thank you, bro. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for giving your perspectives, your insight, and just thank you for everything that you've done for the industry and Thanks, making a positive impact in the ways that you'll never be rewarded for, or ways that you'll never even be aware of that you've made. So just keep doing your thing, bro. And I appreciate you, man.
That's kind of you. Right back at you, man. Like, honestly, thank you for all this. It was really nice to have an actual long conversation with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. First of hopefully we'll have some more. They're usually short, but we got to spend 2.5 hours together. So enjoy your time with Trigger and your family and all of that. And I'll touch bases with you, bro.
All right, my man. Take care of yourself. Thanks a lot.
Barbers. Later, bro.